Good morning and welcome to the New York City Council hearing of the Committee on Criminal Justice, jointly with Oversight and Investigations. At this time, can everybody please silence your cell phones? If you wish to testify, please go to the back of the room to fill out a testimony slip. At this time and going forward, no one is to approach the dais. I repeat, no one is to approach the dais. Chairs, we are ready to begin.
Good morning, everyone. And welcome to today's Joint Criminal Justice and Oversight and Investigations Committee hearing on visiting Rikers Island. I would like to recognize my colleagues, my co-chair today, Councilmember Gail Brewer, Council members Morano and Caban online. For incarcerated New Yorkers, receiving visitors strengthens family ties, improves mental health, and facilitates successful reentry. Visits from defense attorneys are critical to adequate representation and case outcomes for incarcerated individuals. However, both members of the public and attorneys have long reported that visits to Rikers Island are characterized by extremely long waits and poor communication from the department. For family members, an hour-long visit is a day-long endeavor. Once they make it to Rikers Island, an isolated destination over 1.5 miles from the nearest subway station, family visitors must line up and go through initial security procedures at the Central Visits building, wait for a bus to the jail facility where their incarcerated loved one is housed, go through additional security procedures at that jail, and sit in 2 additional waiting areas before commencing a visit. A recent investigation conducted by the Council's Oversight and Investigations Division has identified some maddening inefficiencies and inconsistencies in this process. Signage indicating that people visiting with babies can be expedited through security is placed where an individual can only see it after they have already waited. People are told they cannot bring reading materials through the first security checkpoint, even though the department's visit procedures directive says 3 or fewer books, newspapers, or magazines can be brought into the facility. Minor improvements could make the visit process more humane. Attorneys visiting their incarcerated clients go through a slightly different process, but one fraught with its own set of problems. One facility in particular, the Rose M. Singer Center, where incarcerated women are housed, has just one attorney meeting room, which can cause excessive wait times if multiple attorneys wish to visit clients on the same day. One attorney from the Legal Aid Society told the Council, "Our entire practice has changed because we cannot access our clients in person. We are taking on fewer clients. We are having less intensive conversations as a result of the limited attorney-client meeting space." Many of the issues with visiting underscore the need to accelerate the transition to borough-based jails, smaller facilities with newly designed visiting rooms where people will be incarcerated closer to their loved ones in the community and their attorneys. They also confirmed the importance of legislation the Council passed earlier this year, which would require DOC to establish an online scheduling system for visits, to establish a program to improve the experience of child visitors to department facilities, to conduct a study and publish a report on the feasibility of implementing televisits on weekend days without reducing the hours for in-person visits, and to record interactions in which a person in custody is informed about a visitor and refuses to attend the visit. But given the importance of visiting and the delay in Rikers closure, the department must take steps to improve the visiting process now. The Oversight and Investigations Division's report identified many simple changes the Department of Correction could quickly implement, things like updating the website so that people know how to prepare and what to expect when visiting, providing seating for individuals waiting in line outside, and consistently applying departmental policies. On this issue, I know the department shares our goals. In previous testimony, they've acknowledged that waits are too long, and they are working on a wholesale assessment of the visit process. And I look forward to hearing more about that at today's hearing. What I cannot accept, again, is a simple assurance that the review is in process without any additional specifics. We've been here before at our hearings on the grievance process and sexual abuse in city jails over a year ago. The department told us they were in the process of reviewing policies and auditing facilities. Much of what has been promised remains ongoing without an end in sight. Before I pass it over to Councilmember Brewer, I just want to acknowledge that this is my last hearing as chair of the Criminal Justice Committee this session. Throughout my time as chair, I've tried to use my position to conduct vigorous oversight, pass meaningful legislation, and to advance budget priorities that would help us move closer to closing Rikers, while never losing sight of the fact that while the jails remain open, the people confined there need our support, and the people who work there deserve to be safe. I believe the topic of today's hearing is emblematic of that approach. The borough-based jails will have improved visiting spaces and more accessible to incarcerated individuals, family members, and attorneys. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do everything possible to make the visit process better right away. And I want to acknowledge Councilmember Chris Marte has also joined us, and now I turn it over to Councilmember Brewer for her opening statement.
Thank you very much. I am Gail Brewer, and I chair the Committee on Oversight and Investigations, and I certainly want to thank co-chair and chair of the committee, Sandy Nurse. Today, we will be examining the status of visitation at Rikers Island Complex, and I'd certainly like to thank the representatives from the Department of Correction for being here today and for all of their support when we visit. I also want to thank legal service providers, members of the public, the individuals who visit, and my council colleagues who are part of this proceeding today. Also, Councilmember Hanif is on Zoom. For the time being, Rikers Island remains the center of New York City's correctional system. Ideally, the facility should rehab detainees, preparing them to reintegrate into their communities once they have served their time. Visits with family and friends are a key part of this process since they maintain social bonds that are essential as part of a detainee's inevitable reentry back into society. The Board of Correction recognizes how essential visitation is to positive outcomes, and its minimum standards state the prison should encourage visits from families and friends and attorneys. And I have an interest in this because I have 35 foster care children, and many of them did, I'm afraid, end up at Rikers, and I spent a lot of time visiting. And then recently, with my co-chair and others, we have, thanks to the Department of Correction, we have been at Rikers and seen some of the challenges that we're talking about today. However, the Council's Oversight and Investigation Division has found the visitation process difficult for detainees and their family and friends. The logistics of visiting are daunting. OID found that the trip to Rikers for a maximum 1-hour visit with a detainee entails spending 5 to 6 hours on the island. Basically, it's an entire working day. Time is spent in various waiting rooms, on lines, or going through redundant security checks. Much of that time may be spent outside, no place to sit, or any water to drink. OID observed visitors detained time with detainees for seemingly minor dress code violations. Obviously, a cover dress has provided, but people do not know that necessarily in advance, and they may not accept it. Has to be clearer what to wear. Then there is a matter of treatment of individuals by Rikers staff. Literally every visitor interviewed by the Council's OID team said they had poor experiences with Rikers staff, using words like rude and nasty and demoralizing to describe their treatment. Visitors told investigators that staff seemed to arbitrarily and inconsistently enforce rules. And I know that the department responded that they were upset by this accusation. I know it's hard to deal with the public. I am quite familiar with how hard it is to deal with the public. But I have to say, at the very low-hanging fruit level, being positive as a city employee goes a long way. Beyond the poor experience of in-person visitation, OID also found problems with Rikers' remote televisit system, which is essential for communication between detainees and their legal teams. Despite the flexibility telecommunications should offer, the televisit remained highly limited, only available from 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. on Fridays. Rikers maintains a limited number of televisit slots each week, and appointments are often canceled. Detainees must often wait weeks to reschedule a canceled televisit. We all want to reform New York City's correctional system so they actually put detainees on the path to a law-abiding return to normal. In order to do that, we need to address the ordeal of visitation. We should be encouraging healthy connections between the incarcerated and their families, not punishing the people who make the trek to Rikers. And I look forward to hearing from the department about how you plan to fix the visitation process. And I'm not saying it's easy, but I know it would go a long way towards improving not just the situation for the detainee, but also, believe it or not, for the family who's often on the edge also, having been on that bus many times myself. Before I conclude, I'd like to thank the following council staff for their work on this hearing: OID committee staff, Nicole Kata, Erica Cohen, Alex Yablon, the entire Oversight and Investigations Division, and their names are listed in the report that they wonderfully did, Sam Goldsmith, the superstar from my office, and everyone working in the background to make this hearing run smoothly. And I'd like to turn it back to my co-chair, Councilmember Nurse.
Thank you, Chair Brewer. I'm going to pass it on to committee counsel to swear in the administration.
Thank you. For this hearing, we'll hear testimony from Commissioner Linnell McGinley Liddy, Sherry Ann Rembert, Joseph Caputo, James Conroy, Nell Colon, and James Boyd. If you could each raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and respond honestly to council member questions? Noting for the record that all witnesses answered affirmatively, you may begin your testimony.
Good morning, Chair Nurse and Chair Brewer, and members of the Committee on Criminal Justice and Oversight and Investigations. I am Linnell McGinley Liddy, Commissioner of the New York City Department of Correction. My colleagues and I are here to discuss visitation, a topic critical to the well-being, dignity, and successful reintegration of people in the department's care. The impacts of incarceration are not just borne by those in custody. Their children, their parents, their siblings, and all those who love them serve that time with them as well. And it is those people, those who love them, who will welcome that person home and be most vital in supporting successful community reintegration upon release and reducing recidivism. Keeping those bonds alive while someone is incarcerated matters. And we know firsthand that visits are a cornerstone to maintaining these important connections. This is why the department has developed and implemented a number of robust, nationally recognized programs to support these goals, in consultation with nonprofit organizations and other city partners. We are committed to continuing to build on these programs and to improving the visit experience overall. I'd like to highlight a few important initiatives aimed at improving access to visits and improving the visit experience. The department has a long-standing partnership with the Children's Museum of Manhattan, where individuals in custody have the opportunity to visit with their children and families in the museum. We are excited to announce that we've recently expanded this program to the Brooklands Children's Museum to provide greater access to this wonderful program to children and families from Brooklyn communities. This is a nationally recognized program that embodies the amazing potential that can be realized when leveraging city partnerships and resources. In addition to off-island CMOM visits, we launched CMOM learning hubs at multiple locations, including the Rose M. Singer Center, the George R. Viena Center, the Otis Bantam Correctional Center, and more recently, the Benjamin Ward Visiting Center, also known as the Central Visits Building. These hubs offer interactive, child-friendly play and learning spaces that give families a warm, developmentally supportive environment during their time together. These spaces help reduce some of the unease when visiting within a correctional setting and create opportunities for more meaningful interactions between parents and their children. In addition to these child-friendly initiatives, the department is proud of its long-standing partnership with the Administration for Children's Services, through the Children of Incarcerated Parents Program, also known as CHIP. This is a unique and deeply meaningful offering designed specifically for children in the child welfare system who have a parent incarcerated in our facilities. CHIP visits take place on non-visit days, which allows for a quieter and more supportive environment for these children. Holding these visits outside the hustle of regular visit operations ensures that young people who are navigating the child welfare system and other significant challenges are able to connect with their parent in a space that feels calm, supervised, and centered on their emotional needs. Over the years, ACS has also partnered with us during special events, such as father-daughter dances and holiday celebrations, and has generously donated games, activities, and materials to help us create joyful and supportive environments for children visiting their parents. These efforts demonstrate what is possible when city agencies work together, and they reflect our shared commitment to centering children's needs in this experience. Our child-friendly work also extends through the Visiting and Family Assistance Program, supported by the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. Through this initiative, organizations such as Our Children and the Osborne Association provide mothers at RMSC with counseling, parenting curriculum, support during visits, and connections to essential services. Beginning in January 2026, Our Children will maintain a daily presence at central visits to support caregivers and children as they navigate the visit process and to link families to housing resources, benefits, and community-based services. These supports play an important role in strengthening family networks, reducing the stress of visiting a correctional facility, and improving the overall visit experience for both adults and children. The department has also expanded its family engagement work through grant-funded programs. With this funding, we have been able to strengthen parenting and family connection programming for individuals in our custody and their visitors. This grant allowed us to offer evidence-based parenting classes, enhanced family engagement workshops, and structured supports that help parents maintain meaningful relationships with their children during their incarceration. These services not only improve the visit experience, but also provide parents with the tools and confidence they need to sustain healthy family bonds upon release. This grant funding has also enabled us to deepen our partnership with community-based organizations that specialize in family support and reentry, allowing our approach to be both trauma-informed and grounded in best practices. These efforts reinforce what research has consistently shown, that strong, stable family connections are one of the most powerful predictors of successful reentry. We will continue to pursue opportunities that help us strengthen family bonding and improve outcomes for the people who pass through our system. Together, our partnerships with ACS, MOCJ, and community-based organizations, the expansion of CMOM learning hubs, and off-island museum visits, and other child-focused enhancements illustrate our deep commitment to making the visit process more welcoming, more supportive, and more responsive to the needs of families. These efforts would not be possible without strong cross-agency collaboration and a shared understanding that maintaining healthy family bonds is essential, not only for the well-being of the individuals in our custody, but for the children who depend on them. In addition, we welcome the Council's support in promoting the free visitor shuttle bus that we offer to all New Yorkers who wish to visit a loved one in our facilities. Since 2018, the department has offered 2 free visit buses that run from Harlem, 125th Street, and downtown Brooklyn directly to Rikers to help reduce transportation barriers for families. Additional information regarding the bus schedules can be found on our website, and our staff have already shared it with the Council to disseminate to their networks. We know that visits have an immediate impact on people's rehabilitation and behavior while in custody, and whatever we can do to maintain that support is beneficial. The family visit process itself begins at the Benjamin Ward Visit Center, sometimes referred to as Central Visits. I should clarify here that DOC recognizes that family has an expansive meaning, and visitors do not have to be related to someone in order to visit. Prior to entering the visit center, visitors secure their personal belongings in lockers, including bags, electronic devices, and any food and drinks that they may have on their person, as these items are not permitted within the facilities. Following this, visitors undergo security screening and then register to visit with their loved one. DOC staff are stationed throughout this process to provide information, answer questions, and generally help guide visitors. There's a child-friendly visit space with CMOM installations in the Central Visits waiting area, as well as a visit facilitator to support child visitors. Following registration, families board a departmental bus to the visit area of the facility where their loved one is housed. Upon arrival, visitors complete a brief secondary screening and then wait in the facility visit waiting area for their loved one to be available. Visits can be delayed if there are incidents in the facility that prevent movement, or if the person in custody chooses to finish a program or appointment or engage in other activities to prepare for the visit before being escorted to the visit area. Once the person in custody has been escorted to the visit floor, the visitor meets them and the visit begins. In facilities where there are child-friendly visit spaces, families and people in custody can utilize the space to play and engage with their child. After the visit has been completed, visitors board a departmental bus and return to Central Visits, and then leave the island via a city bus or DOC visitor bus. Though the visit itself lasts an hour, the entire process from arrival to departure can take a long time due to transportation, screening, and other operational factors. Throughout the experience, staff work to keep visitors informed, provide support when needed, and make the process as smooth and respectful as possible. The staff who work here understand that connections to loved ones is priceless and something to be cherished. They want to support visitation because it's the right and humane thing to do, and because when people are connected to their families and to their futures, our jails are safer for everyone. We, of course, recognize that the visit process has its challenges and can be daunting for visitors and is in need of improvement. Improvements we are diligently working to make. In addition to the expansion of child and family-focused programming, DOC has made substantial investments to visit infrastructure over the years, most of it self-funded due to the inability to access capital funds. For the first time in decades, the department is making meaningful investments in the visits process and operation. DOC is closely analyzing procedures, data, and policies that have contributed to a complex and difficult operation for staff and visitors alike over the years. The work is underway, but it must be thoughtful and intentional. Anything short of that will not result in real or sustainable improvements. As part of this revamp, we have established a new executive director role that will serve as a point of contact for all things visits, under the direction of an associate commissioner. In collaboration with various stakeholders throughout the department, the new executive director will engage in the analysis and long-term planning work that is needed to address some of these issues that we are seeing today, and ensure these solutions are effective and sustainable. As Council is aware, DOC is also in the process of developing an online visit scheduling platform. This technology will completely change how the department manages visits and how visitors experience visits. We are very excited to roll this out in the coming years. Critical to our goal of improving both the visit process and experience is our uniformed staff. Public servants, many of whom are parents themselves, who see the work of ensuring people in our care can be connected to their loved ones as essential to serving the public. They have been active participants in our work to improve visits today, especially when it comes to the child-friendly visiting spaces. They make suggestions on how we can do things better, not as officers, but as parents. Staff who frequently engage with visitors are required to participate in a robust annual training that covers topics such as customer service, techniques for working with children, DOC visit and search policies, and more. DOC staff who manage the visit process are encountering people on what is often an emotional day. Visitors are coming to visit people in their lives while they're in jail, which means everyone involved in the process is going through a very difficult time. Our staff take great pride in engaging visitors with care, empathy, and respect during this process. Ensuring that individuals can access their legal counsel is no less important. Legal visits are critical to ensuring that individuals in custody are able to participate fully in their defense and resolve their case expeditiously. Attorney visits are afforded every day between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. and are not time limited. Attorneys begin by checking in at the Samuel L. Perry Center, where DOC staff verify their credentials and issue a pass. From there, they are transported by departmental bus to the facility where their client is housed. Attorneys go through the same front gate screening procedures as any other individual entering a DOC facility. Individuals in custody are escorted to the attorney visit booth, which is located near the front gate of each facility. These visits are confidential and, unlike family visits, often last several hours. Attorneys are now permitted to bring laptops in without restrictions and other materials needed to review evidence to discuss case strategy. Similar to family visits, transportation, screening, and other operational factors can delay the start of an attorney visit, and individuals in custody can decline the visit. The department has worked with defender organizations over the years to address issues that they have raised regarding access and visits, and continues to make improvements to the attorney visit experience. In 2024, we updated policy to more easily allow attorneys to bring laptops into facilities for legal visits. We are in the process of upgrading our video visit system platform for professional visits, which will provide more reliable remote communication options for video teleconferencing. Additionally, the department is modernizing the way in which people in custody can access and review discovery materials through the procurement of innovative technology that will be available on the tablets in the coming year. These technology initiatives should help reduce the burden of attorney visits and facilitate better and speedier case processing. We are also actively reviewing the concerns raised by defender organizations about visit wait times and facility-specific delays. These issues often stem from dated procedures, the physical constraints of older buildings, or the operational demands of safely moving people throughout the complex, but we remain committed to addressing them. We continue to expand confidential spaces, reinforce escort procedures, and improve internal communication so that attorneys can meet with their clients in a timely and consistent manner. Visits of all kinds create immediate, positive impacts on the well-being of people in our care and are closely connected to improved behavior, stronger family bonds, speedier case processing, and better outcomes upon release. We remain committed to finding every opportunity to expand access, strengthen programming, implement creative technology solutions, and create safe and supportive environments where families can remain connected. Thank you for the opportunity to share about the department's work in these areas.
Thank you, Commissioner. I want to recognize we've been joined by Councilmember Joseph, who will be back, and I believe Stephen's online. Thank you for that testimony. I'm gonna, before we start, I just want to really thank the Oversight and Investigations Division and the Council. They always do a great job, and we've gone to a couple of facilities on Rikers together. They're a great team, and I just want to commend them for their work. As an initial threshold question, when DOC had an opportunity to comment on the report, it seemed like there was a question of whether visits were right granted to people in custody under the state constitution. So can your general counsel or you to just please clarify DOC's position, is visiting a constitutional right?
It's actually a complicated legal question. We do recognize that whether it's a constitutional right or not, it is an inherent right of persons in custody, and we take that very seriously. I don't know that engaging in legal dissertation as to what the case law holds, because it's actually under the due
No, we
process.
don't have to. It's just, it was meant to be kind of like to set the tone here, whether or not you
No, I understand.
acknowledged it was a
It
constitutional right.
is, the case law is complicated, and there is rights recognized under the due process clause of the state constitution, but again, we will aver that it is irrelevant to the
Okay.
analysis for us, because it is a fundamental right that we recognize and we take seriously.
Great, great, I accept that. And just for our position, the New York State Court of Appeals has held that contact visitation of reasonable duration is required by the due process clause of the state constitution. So just moving on to wait times for family visits. Last fall, you all told the council that you were conducting an internal study and found that wait times were 4.5 hours on average, which you said was too long. We agree. Can you clarify where the 4.5 hours time frame started and ended? And if that is something that you all see as a wait time as standard across all the jails?
So generally, the wait times it starts that 4.5 hour period, it starts from registration to the completion of the visit.
Okay. And you all track this data internally?
Yes, we do.
And but it hasn't been made public necessarily, I don't think, right?
I believe we provide data.
I don't think so, but it's relatively, this is part of the assessment at looking at wait times. Traditionally, I don't think it's something that the department has done before.
Has publicly put in, okay.
No, not just publicly, but assessed. I don't think we've really assessed wait times before in the way we're doing it now.
Okay, how long have you all been tracking and assessing the way you're doing now?
Well, I think once we made that public announcement that we
In
were
March,
doing this assessment,
when we did
that's
the
when we
hearing?
started
Okay.
looking at visits holistically.
Okay, and so we don't know if the wait time, if that 4.5 hours for you all, your assessment is that is standard across all jails, or there are certain jails where it's longer?
I mean, it varies, right? I think what's unique about visits is that it's complex, right? And every day is different just as a standard in DOC, right? And so you got to look at each day. It could be the visitor, right? It can be the person in custody. Sometimes it could be
But on
staff.
average, which jail takes the longest for a visit?
That I have to get back to you. It does vary day to day, but I think that is the standard across multiple jails, is that it's averaging about 4 hours.
Okay. So you talked about in March, you all said, you agreed it's a long time, you're gonna do a wholesale review. You did share some stuff in your testimony today. We'd just like to go over the project's details. So you said you've announced you've hired or are hiring an executive director?
Yes, the individual is awaiting approval at the moment. Yes.
Okay, and it will be under the supervision of an associate commissioner,
correct.
which,
It will be under security, the associate commissioner assigned to security.
okay, and so beyond that hiring, are there other things that you've discovered or accomplished so far, or protocols, practices that you've implemented since March?
So I can turn it over to our DC of programs. She can let you know some of the things we've done. But in addition to hiring the executive director, we're also putting in a new needs for the team to support the executive director.
Great.
Because this work will require a team to do that.
Do you know how many people you all are putting in for?
I believe it's approximately 12.
Great.
Yes.
Just to add to that, like that's a first, to create visit operations as a standalone unit within the department. That is a first for us, as well as hiring a dedicated manager, non-uniform manager, to oversee that operation. That is a first. So that's how we're recognizing that it needs to be unto itself and be managed directly by an executive director.
Thank you. My name is Nell Colon. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for the Division of Programs and Community Partnerships. So in regards to some of the actions that we've been taking, actually starting back in 2019, we began onboarding, I'm going to mention just a few initiatives, visit facilitators, and I just want to highlight some of their work because that started as a one-person initiative and has now grown, where we have multiple staff in this role. This role is a non-uniform member of service. Again, title, visit facilitator. They support children and family visiting, and they particularly manage our CMOM learning hubs across the facilities. So actually throughout 2025, we opened up multiple CMOM learning hubs. We currently have them in our central visits. We also have them in our facility GRVC, RMSC, and OBCC. We're expanding to RNDC, and then we're working towards having one of these learning hubs in all of our facilities. These visit facilitators help support the use of those learning hubs, making sure that they're actively used with the incarcerated parent, with also in the waiting areas, we have child-friendly activities, furniture,
We've
and the
been
visit
there.
facilitator
Actually,
support.
Councilmember Brewer and I went to two of them. Yep. They were great. They looked actually very, very nice.
Yeah, so this has been long-standing. Actually, the CMOM learning hubs and all of this work has been starting in 2023 and moving through, but we've started to see some major progress in the last year. And just to highlight for the visit facilitators, to acknowledge where we currently have them, we do have one currently in our central visits. That's a priority. We also have one in RNDC, OBCC, and then we have two pending onboarding, one for the Rosem Singer Center and then also for GRVC. So again, as we expand our capacity to have these visit facilitators, they really help navigate for families any of that waiting time, but then also the engagement with the parent throughout the visit. And I can...
No, that's good. I mean, it sounds like you all have focused on a lot around people with children and families visiting, and that's great, and that's a huge priority. And I thank you all for the work you did to improve what the facilities look like. They were very nice. But I do want to continue on. So for the waiting conditions, I understand that the 4.5-hour time frame starts at registration, but people also wait in line outside of the central visits building. So how often do visitors to DOC facilities wait outside of that building, and do you have a sense of how long people wait there?
I mean, I don't think we track that because I think people are showing up before it opens, right? And so I think because it's kind of a first come, first served or walk-in basis, people are trying to get in line in advance to be the first one to go through the process.
So can you tell me what you all track? I mean, to get to your 4.5, you said you started doing that in March. Just can you tell me, like, what are the pieces that you're
So
tracking?
we have an application that's called Visitor Express, and as people come in and are registered, they're registered through Visitor Express.
Okay.
So from the beginning of registration at Central Visits until they return back to Central Visits at the completion of their visit, they have a card that has a barcode, and throughout the process, they are scanning. And that's how we are tracking wait times.
So
and then
when
going through
they
the
hit
process.
the registration, then they hit the central visits, they do a scan there?
Right, they get a printed ID card with a barcode, and as they're
And then
waiting
as
in
they
the
go to
waiting
each stop,
area,
they're doing that?
but as they're waiting for the waiting area before they get on the bus to go in the facility, they are scanning. And then
Okay.
when they get to the jail, where they're going to visit the person in custody, they are scanning again. So kind of
So
throughout the
you-
process, we are kind of
Right.
tracking.
So I mean, if you have that, then you would be able to know how long people are waiting in between these periods.
Yeah, we know how long people are waiting in between those periods, but the thing is with your question is how long people are, so people can come on to the island and register. So we don't track that period.
Right.
Yeah.
But from registration to central visit, you know how long they're there. From central visit to the next stop, you know how long they're there, including the bus, because you're scanning at the bus, right? Right. Yes or no? Sorry, I saw some heads move from maybe other staff.
Right before they get on the bus, at central visits before they depart,
Okay.
there's a scanner there too.
So Chair Brewer and I weren't able to join the investigations team for the visit. It's been complicated this last end of term. But our investigator found that it was about 45 minutes waiting outside. So it would be great if you all could provide that data to us in the follow-up, what you have and what you're tracking, so we can understand on average how long are people waiting outside.
I think it would be helpful for some clarity, and we can do this as part of the follow-up, of if they were waiting outside before visits opened.
No, I'm talking about between registration, but between buildings. So if you're waiting outside in a 20-degree day between registration and central visits, or any period that
I
you're
don't
outside.
think you're outside if you're if you've been processed through registration, we have an indoors waiting areas, and I believe the investigation staff from your team actually saw those waiting areas for each jail.
Okay, we'll come back to that. How much seating is available in the area outside of the central visits building where visitors wait outside?
I think that's what we're looking for clarity. If there's no seating outside of central visits. Once central visits opens, people come through, the process begins. So then you're going through security screening. Once you clear security, and then you're actually going to be sitting in the waiting area, waiting for transportation to take you to the jail. So people are waiting online outside, and people likely do that before it opens, right? Because it's a walk-in basis. But once we open and we start processing people, technically people are not waiting outside, right? Because we're letting them in, we're processing them, and then once they clear the security screening, they are waiting in the waiting room. And they do that both at central visits as well as the receiving jail as they await for the person in custody visit to start.
Okay. Does DOC have plans to add seating to the waiting area?
So this is part of the assessment that we're doing. Like, we recently included an awning because people come and they visit and they're waiting for a visit. So we are assessing all these things. And once we've made a determination, we can let you know. But that's part of the top-down assessment we're doing.
I mean, so do you know how many people are standing and unable to sit in the waiting area? Do you have that type of information on average?
We don't have that information.
Okay. So right now, there are 2 security processing points for every visitor, the central visit house and the actual jail facility. This process increases wait times and seems to be the source of confusion and tension for visitors, at least as it's being reported to us. Why can't visitors be transported directly to the facility they are visiting and be processed once there? Why have 2 sets of lockers, 2 sets of metal detectors, of officers, of pat frisks? If you could let us know on the record.
Good morning. I'm Sherry Ann Rembert, Bureau Chief of Staff. Can you repeat your direct question?
Yes, my question is, why do we have 2 sets of everything? If you are being processed more than once on the island, why not just go directly to the facility that you're going to? You have 2 sets of lockers, multiple sets of metal detectors, of officers, of pat frisks. My question is more about the efficiency.
Yes, thank you. The first preliminary set happens at the Rikers Island Rikers Island Visitor Control Building, and that set is really to get your first period for amnesty to discard all the non-permissible items and all items that cannot go inside of Rikers Islands, as well as the facility. I can provide you a list of items that cannot be.
No, I guess my question is just more of the logistics of stopping. You go through a security check, you get signed in, you've put some stuff in a locker, but then you can take some stuff to the next place. You get kind of go through a process again.
Outside of safety and security of our person in custody, their loved ones, and our staff, that is an important stop that we need to do both at the hub of central visits as well as the facility. It's a 2 process. It's not to create any bottleneck, it's not to create any long-standing waiting, but it's just for the safety and security of our person in custody, our visitors, as well as our staff.
So can you break more down the security rationale?
Good morning. I am Acting Assistant Chief Joseph Caputo. I'm in charge of the Criminal Justice Bureau and also operations, facility operations. So I understand your question, and you know, the best way to answer it would be there's certain steps that you follow at each area for security, right? And I don't know if you want me to delve into each aspect of it, but it would require us to have multiple very expensive machines at each facility as opposed to having them in one location. So there's part of the process that you go through the L3 machine in central visits. Otherwise, we would have to have one of those machines in each single facility, and they would have to use it there. So that's why it's a centralized screening, and then we do an additional screening once you get to the facility, because there's some items that you are not allowed to bring to central visits at all, like the chief mentioned. Then there's some items that you can bring into the facility, but not onto the visit floor. So that's the aspect of the duplicative search, which is what you believe it to be, but there's reasons behind it. Does that make sense?
I guess I understand. I guess it just adds more time in the day. And I think in your assessment, it'd be good, at least in the follow-up, if you could break down the security rationale, because if you have a place where people are going through all of that, then to go through a bunch of that again, you got kids, you got stuff with you, it just adds a lot more time, and it doesn't necessarily seem to be the most efficient. If you want to, you can send a bunch of that stuff to break it down for us.
So we will send it, but this is also part of the assessment that will be done. If this is, what are the checks that are necessary? What do we do on the second search? But that is under consideration right now.
Okay, I just have a couple other questions, and I'll turn over to Chair Brewer. But when is there a time frame or a deadline for the end of this assessment period for the visitation?
I mean, I think it has to be ongoing, right? I think historically this has been the visit process for probably years.
Ongoing.
But on decades, right?
Ongoing
You want this to be meaningful and intentional, right? And again, we're not aloof to this process, right? We've had friends and families who went through the visit process. I've been through the visit process myself, right? So we want to do this and we want to get it right. And I think the significant milestone for improvement will be scheduling visits, right? But I think along the way, we can make progress and make some changes. So I don't want to say like the assessment's going to be some mission accomplished banner. I think it's just things we're going to have to keep doing to make sure we're refining, we're checking what we've done to make sure it's working.
Right, but you understand that our job is to hold you accountable to that. So having some target dates, having some target goals, like is an assessment of the visitation process going to take a year? Is it a 2-year project? I mean, you have been there long enough to know what a reasonable timeline is for assessing things. We've gone through the same process with the grievances and the sexual assaults. It's an ongoing assessment, but when does it end, and when are concrete things put into place and deliverables that you can point to and say, this is how we've actually materially changed and put in different things in place? It would be good to have some sense of what that looks like.
Chair, I have no issues keeping you updated.
I know, but I'm
on
not
our
the only
progress.
person that needs to be updated. It would be great to have some kind of target.
So I think this is something we can revisit when we onboard the executive director of visits, because she will be solely responsible for doing this assessment with her team. And so we can circle back with you in terms of a time.
Great. And did you say when you expect them to be onboarded? I know you said they were in the
They're actually currently pending at OMB right now, so we anticipate it to be very soon.
Okay, great. I will keep the next few short. How are we doing on the online visitation system? That was the legislation passed by Councilmember Gutierrez. Is the money been put in the budget for it to purchase the software or start that process of beginning to procure?
So the procurement process is underway. We do want to look for additional funding because right now it's self-funded, and I think that's part of the kind of the challenge of trying to implement this sooner. So we're probably looking at the next fiscal year to roll this out. But obviously, if we can get those resources sooner, that will be helpful. In addition to what the commissioner alluded to, we are going to need a dedicated team to manage scheduling, right? It's not just implementing scheduling. You're going to need somebody to manage the scheduling, specifically if someone wants to reschedule or people in custody change locations.
So it was 2 million that you estimated you would be needed. Are you saying those funds are not enough? And how much more are you looking for?
I would have to follow up with our finance and IT team, but I think the vendor that we're possibly looking at would be inclusive of scheduling visits for the entire visit universe, inclusive of video visits and televisits.
Okay. And so you're saying those funds haven't appeared in your budget? The initial 2 million?
It might be there. I have to follow up. I just
Okay.
don't know if it's
Maybe
if it's
somebody can
enough.
check while we're doing this hearing. And then finally, just quickly on attorney visits, and then I'll turn it over to Chair Brewer. At the September Board of Correction meeting, defense attorneys shared a number of systemic issues with timely attorney visits, including excessive wait times, a lack of sufficient confidential meeting space with clients, and a lack of timely communication and coordination. What steps have you all taken since September to address this?
So with respect to some of the basic complaints regarding the spaces and otherwise, our facilities team did a survey of all the areas and identified spaces. There were things that were brought up, such as booths that were too low, that created an issue. So I believe we've identified those areas. We'll make improvements. Temperature issues were identified, which have been rectified, to my information. There were issues with the phones that interact. While we could install multiple ones, because one of the issues of concern was that if we had 2 attorneys visiting or members of the team, you couldn't have them on the same call because it was only one handset. So we've ensured that all the handsets are working. Installation of other ones is a different issue that we'll have to explore, because I don't know if physically we could actually do that. With respect to there were concerns specifically, which is under litigation, or at least an appeal, relating to the RESH visits. We've made several attempts to adjust the process. There was issues about having to jump on multiple transportation vehicles. We now have a process where once the attorney checks in, they're transported directly to the rear of RESH. And also we've tried to explore ways to have, instead of waiting in the area that was of concern for the attorneys, that they're waiting in the visit area itself. So those specific steps with those areas have been undertaken. As we've talked about, the attorney visits are just too long. The wait times are too long. So primarily we're ensuring that the communication is direct, and we are also talking about an interim fix regarding robust scheduling and communication with the facilities individually, so that once the attorneys arrive at the facility, the client is there at the time. We need an interim fix. We can't wait in that universe for the scheduling system.
And my understanding is that at Rose M. Singer, RNDC, and EMTC, there's only one room available for attorney-client visits. Can you confirm that?
Rose M. Singer, yes. RNDC, no. They have
And
multiple
EMTC?
booths. EMTC has multiple booths as well.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to turn it over for now to Chair Brewer, and I recognize council members Narcisse and Ressler.
Thank you very much. In your testimony, just before I have many questions, I thought it was good that you're mentioning that both our children and maybe Osborne are trying to have some kind of dialogue people for follow-up. I was wondering if you could expand on that, because obviously I know, and I think we all know, the families have many challenges: housing, healthcare, school, everything. And yet they don't often visit in their neighborhood to have that kind of support. So if you were to catch them here, but I don't know that one person from Osborne or one person from our children could do that. That would be a really good idea, to have that kind of support. So I just was wondering what kind of services they really offer.
Hello, yeah, I'd love to answer that question. So the Visiting and Family Assistance Program is one of the programs with our children and the Osborne Association that we've partnered with specifically around visiting. And that specific program does provide, it's for mothers who are incarcerated, so I just want to highlight that. And for those mothers who are incarcerated, they provide one-on-one counseling, connections to services, so any type of referral services that are needed, they really go above and beyond in supporting both the families in the community, the caregivers, the children, and the mothers. They also provide visit coaching, both for children and for mothers. They provide parenting classes as well. So that program affords really a wraparound look at how we support our mothers who are in custody and how we support their children and the caregivers. But in addition to that program, something that we are rolling out in January of 2026 is adding our children to our central visit location. So as I mentioned, we do have a visit facilitator who's a DOC non-uniformed employee who is at our visit, our central visit location, but we are including our children to be able to instantly connect to families, caregivers, friends,
What would they
loved
do when
ones.
they're there? What would they actually do?
So the goal is that not only are they interacting with visitors, but they are identifying, do they need help with benefits and can they do instant referrals? Is there a way that they can instantly support making sure that somebody has access, whether it's benefits, housing referrals?
That's a lot
another-
in the waiting room.
It is, and this is something
I mean, I could
new.
do it, but I don't know if everybody could do it. I could do it. But I'm just saying that's a rough assignment.
Well, we are grateful to our partners at Our Children and the support that they have been providing to families and people.
Okay, I would love to see an update on that. I think it's a great idea. You probably need 20 people to do it if you're going to do it effectively, if I may suggest that. You know, that's what we do all day long, constituent work.
Yep.
And, you know, it's a great idea because those families need help, but I think you need more than one person. Just a suggestion. Also, in the waiting room before 1 o'clock, could we put some benches out there as opposed to waiting? I mean, I understand that when you get inside, there may be, obviously, places to sit, but outside, is that something that could be considered? I could get a bench if you want, you know.
As I said, we are assessing and we will make improvements.
Okay, DOT has lots of benches.
Okay.
Just a question. This is an example of somebody, the person waited 8 hours before she was told she couldn't see her husband. She was upset. This came from some of the attorneys. And she obviously got upset. She got angry at a correction officer. And then she got banned from visiting her husband for 45 days. Apparently, there was no discussion or apology. And I guess that, and then there was no paperwork. So I want to understand what is required under the minimum standards. That led to an Article 78 challenge, and then I guess in the end, they got restoration. That's not how it should be, and I'm sure that the interaction with the officer was not pleasant. So my question is, again, how do we deal with some of these culture issues? They're not easy, I'm not gonna say they are, but how do we deal with that? Again, maybe that's part of the assessment. And also, how can the department assure that visitors and the advocates and the courts, how can the department assure that it will improve its ability to implement court orders? That's my question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was a multi-part, I think, question. So I'm not immediately familiar with the circumstance you're talking about, obviously. I think as part of the testimony, the commissioner, reiterated that there could be numbers of reasons why some visits may be delayed, based on the process and what's happening in the facility itself. So again, I can't speak as to that specific issue. Implementation of court orders. All court orders come through my office. I have attorneys that are watching for this on a essentially a 24-hour basis, and we immediately communicate with the facilities whenever there is a court order. And not just the facilities, meaning a general email. We refer out to the leadership and include some of our executives around the island. So, I mean, if there is circumstances where court orders are not complied with, it should be to my attention immediately, and usually will be. And, I know my team is under direct orders to, until we get a resolution and answer, not leave the matter floating.
Okay. And the culture issue, is that under assessment?
So we do have training, and we can go into detail what that training consists of, but all staff members who are assigned to the visits process, they're required to do a 12-hour training module, which includes customer service. I mean, I can give you sort of the details on that, but we found that to be successful. We've actually, for the year, we have approximately 86% of our staff trained. They have until the end of the year to complete that. But part of this process includes that training in terms of how you communicate with people coming in. And for the most part, you know, we ensure that that's done. But again, part of the assessment is also going to be looking at the training, whether it needs to be more robust, whether we need to include additional information. Again, this is sort of the active work that we're doing, but currently we do have training that the staff, they take.
Is that training in person, online, or both?
It is, I believe it's a combination, but
It's primarily an in-person training. It's a 12-hour training, and I do just want to highlight recognizing the importance of partnerships. We began working with the Osborne Association in 2024. They actually helped us create a 2-hour module. It is titled Strengthening Interactions with Visiting Children, but broadly speaking, it's not just about interacting with children, but it's about working with patience and empathy for the visitors who are coming on site, including how we promote positive visits for children and families, making sure the visiting process is understood from the visitor's perspective. So it's not just from our perspective, but that training really incorporated this type of information for our staff to see the visit process through a different lens. Osborne Association worked with us to train trainers. So any person who is facilitating that 2-hour module was trained by the Osborne Association to make sure that we are doing this training in fidelity of the goals that were created.
Okay, thank you. Our investigator found the dress code issue to be problematic. I think maybe there's not enough information up front, and I know that, you know, people have different ideas about what is appropriate. So I wanted to know, because we did find that visitors were turned away without being offered the cover-ups at Central Visit. So I wanted to understand who gets a cover-up, who doesn't, what is the dress code. And again, this is something that could create friction, shall we say, between the visitors and the staff.
A couple of things with that, Council Member. Our Deputy Commissioner of Public Information and the office that oversees our website, we're coming up with better descriptions of the dress code and finding ways to make it more clear to everyone. I don't know that I could articulate it here myself, but we could certainly follow up with that as to what it is. But nonetheless, we are going to definitely find ways to better describe what is permitted. We've heard anecdotes, as you just mentioned, of people being turned away.
Yes.
That should not be occurring. The process would be...
It is occurring, according to us. Yeah.
And it should not be. And that's something, when it's brought to our attention, we're making sure that we address. The cover-ups, the T-shirts that are provided are available, we confirmed, at the facilities. So what the process is, if someone comes into the Central Visits location and they have an issue with the dress, they will go to the facility, at which point they will be offered the cover-up. So we've addressed that aspect already, because that is not part of policy. So wherever we heard of these incidents where people were being turned away, that should not be happening. And we've addressed that already and ensured that these cover-ups are available at every facility.
Okay. So, I mean, my question would be then, when are you updating? Same kind of question Councilmember Nurse asked, which is, what's the time frame on figuring out? I assume that maybe some of these dress codes are outdated. I don't know. But is that part of the assessment? Are we still in the same assessment mode?
Right, so it's part of the assessment, but understanding there are things that can be done fairly quickly, the things that can be done fairly quickly, which includes identifying what type of clothing people can, appropriate clothing to enter our facilities. That is something that we can do fairly quickly, and the team is already working on that. As soon as that is done, we will upload it onto our website, providing the description so people have clarity in when they're entering the island. And I can attest to, Chief Caputo also addressed the issue with respect to making sure that clothing is available if people come to the facility to visit with their family member, that they are provided with a cover-up there.
Okay. You're also getting, go ahead.
And I would just add that when we talk about, so we don't linger into the new year, we're talking about weeks this will be. So we'll have the website updated within, several weeks.
And I think you also need to make sure it's, there's a gender issue here. I have no idea what is or not appropriate, but you do have a situation where the women feel that they are more subject to cover up than the men. And again, I don't know, but that should be something that you should recognize and figure out how to deal with.
Exactly. All of that will be factored in.
Okay. I have a question about, let's see. I guess I still want to understand, though you explained this, Councilmember Nurse, if you are going to the main facility to get checked in and then you have to go to the second, I understand too, you made it clear. However, is it not possible for the second one to not have to go through a checkpoint again, in the sense that can you not make the same items be available and necessary, and so you don't have 2 times where you do or do not take the books or the water or the whatever? I'm just trying to think of how it could be quicker and less invasive.
So I don't think any of our searching is really invasive, but the second security protocol is a lot less timely than the first. And I think that, part of our analysis, and you pointed out that we have the checkpoints and we can look at the time frames and then make an assessment on how long the people are spending at each one and perhaps make several modifications behind that if warranted. But, right now, security is paramount, right? There's contraband entering facilities from all different avenues, and I won't even begin to delve into where they're coming from, but visits is one of them, right? So we take that, as paramount.
But you haven't figured that out wouldn't contraband have been identified when you come in for the first time at the main checkpoint?
So again, I can't delve into this too much because I don't want to give people ideas on how to evade security, but
hear you.
there is items that are caught at both checkpoints.
Okay.
And things can shift in transit from one place to the other.
Okay. Just going back also to the waiting time, is there water at any of these wait points? Or a water fountain?
I don't know if there's a water fountain. I can double check, but there are vending machines throughout the areas, and I'm sure if someone asks our staff for a bottle of water, we have plenty of bottled water at Rikers Island, I'm sure staff.
Because that seemed to come up as something that's necessary and doesn't exist. So you're saying it does exist, but you'd have to know.
Well, we have vending machines. I will have to double check about an actual water fountain, but we have plenty of water bottles on the island, and so we can make sure that that's available if someone does need water.
Okay. Again, they wouldn't know to ask unless somebody tells them that they could. I'm just saying that. Okay. When people go to Bellevue or Elmhurst, obviously they're ill. Apparently, understandably, families would like to visit. How does that work in terms of medical emergencies and family visitations?
Bellevue has a standard visiting procedure just like Rikers Island does. Unless there's a medical restriction on an individual, they can still receive visits. If they are not in our prison ward and they're outposted within the hospital, they still are allowed to have a visit. But again, we delve into the medical aspects as long as it is medically not contraindicated. We do allow them to have visits.
Okay. And what happens if, back to Rikers, what happens if there's a lockdown at a facility? Do the visitors stay there till it's cleared? How does it get communicated? All those kinds of issues if there's a lockdown when there's visitations.
If there's a lockdown of the facility, it is communicated to the visitor as well as when the person in custody is being known that the visitor is there, it's being communicated to the visitor there's a lockdown. So that's one of the reasons why, that could be one of the reasons why there's a long standing for the 4 hours as well. It's incidents that's driven at the facility that may have a lockdown. We let the visitor know, and the visitor can make a determination if he or she will stay or he or she will go.
Does that happen often in terms of the visiting hours, or hard to know?
It's hard to know, ma'am.
Okay. Again, back to the signage and restrooms. So again, apparently the signage is not great. People don't necessarily know where to go for the restrooms. Is that something that would be improved as time goes on? It seems to me that would be a fairly easy wayfinding process.
Yes, absolutely. That's something that we are looking at. We recognize there is signage, but we know that we can include more signage so people have clarity as to where to go and what to expect.
Okay. Do you know, just again, data, how many visitors are first-timers or they're repeats? Is that kind of the data that you have as something that you keep?
Yeah, so for this calendar year to date of December 4th, we've had about 79,993 visits altogether. 75% of those visits was in-person visits, 20,000 were televisits, and of that number, at least half were repeat visitors this year, and all the remaining half came to the island for the first time this year.
Okay, that's a good data, thank you. On the lockers, is it clear, again, information is so key to keeping people calm. Does it list on the lockers or on the website, and I should know this, on the website anyway, what people should leave in them and what they shouldn't? How is that information communicated? I think it's clear what you're not supposed to bring in the first place.
Yes, ma'am. So on the locker, as soon as you get to the Rikers Islands, they will give you an announcement as to what you can leave in the locker rooms and what can be
A verbal announcement.
a verbal announcement, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there anything on the locker itself, in case people are not paying attention?
No, ma'am. There's nothing on the locker.
Is that something that could be added?
Yes, ma'am.
That was a
We will.
request that we had from the investigator.
That will
Again.
be a part.
Again, it's all part of the assessment, and it's for clarity, for people understanding, even prior to coming to Rikers, what is it that they can bring with them and what they should potentially leave at home.
This new person has a lot of work to do.
Well, that's why it's not just going to be about a person, it has to be
That's what
a
a
system.
team.
Yeah,
This team has a lot.
that's correct.
Councilmember Williams is on Zoom. Just want to make that clear. One question I also had was, let's see, if you get a complaint, a call about an officer or staff member who is mistreating, I'm not saying that they do, but there is a complaint, how do you handle that? Again, we did hear that that is a constant refrain, despite all the amazing training that you do. So how do you handle somebody who apparently has mistreated, and I say apparently because I don't know for sure.
That matter is investigated.
And what does that mean?
It is looked into by the facility, and there's a determination made whether it's substantiated or not.
Okay. If the person who is visiting needs to go to a bathroom during the visit, do they go by themselves? Are they escorted? How does that happen in terms of the process, and is that our pause? Again, this seems like a minor issue, but important to the visitation.
Thank you. If the visitor is on the floor and they need to use the bathroom, the visitor is then escorted to the restroom and escorted back.
Okay, and that, do they have to go bend through searching again, or how does
No,
that?
ma'am, because they're being escorted from the visit with the visit officer to the restroom and return.
Okay. The televisiting is happening or not happening yet? Maybe I should understand this. I know you need funding for it.
Yes, televisit is happening. It's happening on a Friday.
Right, and is that enough time? I think it's just a few hours on Friday. Do you get a sense that people want more time, or is it popular? Is it used? And I know you have to make an appointment. Sometimes you make an appointment and then it's not kept, and there's a lot of challenges with the city council and telecommuting also. So I know it's not easy, but can you just describe what kind of support you give, how it's working, et cetera?
Well, we start with the access to our website. If you have a phone, iPhone, Android, Mac, PC, iOS 15.1, 50.2, Safari web browser, Chrome web browser, Firefox web browser, you can get access to our website and get access to the televisit form. That televisit form is quite clear. It's the same, almost the same process as the in-person visits, because you have to register, and only people that's registered can be on a televisit. Once you register, it is then submitted. It's submitted, and then after it's submitted, then it's manually printed out by our officers, the SOD staff in the central visits, to manually print and ensure that we juggle the schedule to make sure each televisit is provided with almost a first request, their first time, and or their second alternative date and time that they want to do televisits. So, in my opinion, I think it's working. In my opinion, I think it's good, and I think it's also another avenue for the Department of Corrections that we are showing them that we want them to have a good relationship and connectivity with their loved ones.
Okay, because according to our material, there were like over 260 that were not completed. And I know that's difficult. Is there a phone number to call if in fact you're having trouble as the person on the other end?
Well, if
Only
you look
because
at it,
in the city, we have a great technology folks. I call them all the time. I can give you the number by heart because that person is like a lifesaver if you can't get through.
thank you. If you look at our website, it's clear. We have a robust tutorial and helpful hints on how to
I hate
connect.
those FAQs.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying. Generally, you need a phone number. I'm throwing that out. Go ahead. I'm just saying.
I mean-
that's something that those of us who are constantly online say, please, please, please give me a phone number to call.
That's going to be the role of the new ED, right?
Oh,
I think
Lord,
a lot
this
of
poor
that's going to
person.
be this new operation are going to be the go-to for the universe of visits as well as her staff. I think, right, the process, as the chief just explained, is a very manual process, which is why we want more sophisticated technology to reduce some instances where there's disconnecting from televisits and make it more easier for people.
Okay, I'll go to Council Member Narcisse has a question, and Council Member Abreu is here, and then maybe we'll come back. I have many more. Thank you.
Good. I think it's afternoon at this time, or morning still. Good morning. I was in the tunnel for about 45 minutes, so I kind of like lucid a little bit here. So thank you for being here. Thank you, chairs. My question, whenever we're talking about incarceration, right? I want to know, is the model is more based on rehabilitation, how we doing? Because other country, I don't want to say that, but their approach is about solving problems. And right now, I want to know how we doing in terms of, do we have statistic on folks that left, go out and let's say they were incarcerated, when they get in the community, is there any follow-up to see how they're doing in terms, do they finish school if they're starting? And if we have information on the children, how they doing, are they graduating from high school or middle school, and how involved we are mentally with those children. So help me out, because I want that, being a nurse, I like the holistic approach. How are we doing?
I mean, just at the outset, I would say that that's a difficult metric to look at in our universe because most of our population are pretrial detainees. So they've not yet been sentenced. We only have a very limited universe of people who've been sentenced. I mean, that's really though we operate in a manner to provide programming and other services that address those areas, what happens after the release is not often, part of our purview because they go to the state to serve out sentences sometimes or otherwise released pursuant to whatever court proceeding. So it's a hard metric for us to contemplate because, again, most of our population is pretrial while they have charges pending.
But that being said, I can't emphasize enough our partnerships with nonprofit organizations and other city agencies. I can speak to a few different initiatives. I mean, first and foremost, we have the MOCJ Reentry Network, and so we have direct referrals. These organizations are coming on island. They're doing transition plans with people in custody, and these are organizations like the Fortune Society, the Osborne Association, these recognizable names that people who are leaving custody can find their buildings, find their locations for follow-up, for educational support, for employment support, housing resources, benefit support. And so I can't emphasize their work enough because they are really the community partners, and that's through MOCJ. We also, in our workforce development program, we have programs that actually, as you're participating in them, I'll use our driving simulator because it's quite popular in our facilities. As they participate in our driving simulator program, we have resources set up so that when they leave the community, we can help them get their driver's license. We can help them enroll in CDL programming. These funds are available, and there is follow-through to make sure that people are actually getting access into these programs. And I want to highlight even additional partnerships. We're closely working with DYCD right now. They have also began a new reentry initiative to make sure that people are getting paid internships in the community. It's called the CRED program. And so we're working to see how we refer people in custody into these programs so that they get the services that they need that you're speaking to, so that we do not see recidivism, so that we do not see people come back into our custody. So this is like keenly on our mind of how we support them through programs and through services and referrals. But just to mention, those services are not offered by DOC staff in the community, but are offered by our partnerships with program providers.
And in that vein, talking about reducing recidivism, that's why it's important for us too, for our connections with making sure people have these visits, especially seeing your kids, understanding that there's something that you have to work towards. And so having even our partnerships with the Children's Museum of Manhattan, the Brooklyn Children's Museum, where they're actually able to go into the community and play with their child and have, you know, that time in a comfortable setting, it's very important because it provides sort of focus. That is one of the really sort of cornerstone issues for us at DOC, that we're ensuring that that's happening because we understand the importance of family bonds and family connections.
Because once that person entering that cycle, I would call it, you can stop that person, you can help them to stop, or they can continue. This is a brick and build for me, because once you get to enter that door, it's so difficult. It's difficult to start with, but you enter that door, your family, everything. You play such an instrumental role in our society. We can build those folks back to serve the community. And before I finish, let me ask you that. For the children, how is the partnership with Department of Education in terms of mental health? Because mental health is big, so the therapy they're having, how old that you're starting them?
So I could...
How old that they start?
So New York City Public Schools, we do have sites on Rikers Island through District 79 and the East River Academy. They do have social workers that work on site for the people who are currently incarcerated. But we are also partnering with the New York City Public Schools to look at how we're supporting children in the public school system who have an incarcerated parent. So while DOC's work would be with that incarcerated parent, that we're looking at holistically what can we do to improve, whether it's parenting classes for the incarcerated parent, and then on their end, how they can support the children who are in their school system. So while I don't want to speak to exact age groups, this is a new partnership that we recently did, kind of a survey of what type of supports we believe need to be put in place to build out this partnership. We are actively working with our New York City Public School partners, whether it's the folks on site working directly in our school sites or this partnership with parents.
Okay. One last one, the health part. When the person is being transferred, they were incarcerated, and they're moving or being upstate, how well the transition of filings taking place? Or do they have a document, like paper-like, or electronically do we send report to the next place where that person going?
Yeah, the information is electronically transferred to the state immediately.
Okay. So the state receive everything?
They have full access in real time, even prior to their arrival, of their medical information.
All right, thank you, Cheers.
It's like the EMR.
EMR, oh, so that's what I wanted to know,
Yeah,
too, if you have
yeah,
the EMR.
I know.
All right, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ressler? Right, he stepped out, but he'll ask questions. He always asks questions. Just back to the question that I had earlier about turning visitors away. Who makes that decision? I gave you an example, theoretical. I don't know the specifics any more than you do, except what I was told. But can a denial decision be appealed? Obviously, yes, but what's the process? Our investigator did see a visitor leave without a form. So I want to make sure that there is spot checking to ensure that visitors who are turned away always receive a form as is mandated. So I just want to know if you could comment on that. Even though it's nothing specific, how do you make sure that you have that form that is mandated?
Yes. The question is who turns away the captain and higher have the authority to turn away, but it must be the son of the tour commander will get involved. But the captain can turn away based on various different things if the visitors do not want to clear the magnometer or clear the procedures for the search. But it's the captain, it's not the officer.
All right, thank you.
And as a follow-up, they should be provided documentation when in line with the minimum standards so that it can be appealed.
Just so you know, it's not happening on a regular basis. Thank you.
Okay. I have a couple questions from some of our members who are online. We didn't have quorum. But Councilmember Stevens had a question that I wanted to ask. When incidents occur and facilities go into lockdown, families are unable to visit or communicate with their loved ones, often for extended periods of time. What steps are being taken to reduce the frequency of these incidents, particularly in housing areas that experience a disproportionate number of lockdowns? How are we improving communication systems so families are not left completely without information during these moments?
All right, thank you for the question. Look, so our approach is to try to minimize lockdowns. We try to investigate and abate lockdowns as quickly as possible. The communication aspect is a challenge because, these are incident-driven in real-time events. So, there's no way to pre-plan an unfortunate event from occurring. So if we feel that this is, not going to be an expedient lockdown, we will make sure we give that information to central visits so that the families can make a decision whether they wish to try to wait or they wish to come back a different day.
Okay, yeah, I think maybe that can be a part of the assessment to just figure out how to, if there's people expecting to visit somebody and there's a lockdown, how do we kind of quickly figure that out?
I mean, there are instances, and Deputy Commissioner Programs can speak to this, but there are instances when we have things that are planned and we still allow those events to continue to proceed because we understand the families have been waiting for some time. So again, as we're doing this, it's sort of like in real time, but we're also making assessments whether or not to proceed with a visit, to proceed with an event. We're not just saying no.
I appreciate that. I had heard that years ago, a former commissioner actually went through the visitation process themselves. Have you gone through that process?
I did as an attorney, but not as a commissioner.
Okay. Has any DOC officials done it recently?
Yes, we have members of the Division of Programs. It's something we regularly actually do to see how we can better support in our visit areas.
Okay. One other thing that was flagged for me in the signage, which I think is a pretty simple, easy fix that could have started in March, to be honest. There was a question about why not, signage about diapers, or there's something about some visitors aren't allowed to bring extra diapers or have complained. And so just simple things like that, making sure what's on your website matches all the rules for on-site, and having those signs earlier visible in the process so people don't go too far along before realizing they're in a situation.
Yes, thank you for the question. So on our policy, it states that the visitor can bring 2 diapers. On the visit floor, you can only have the diaper that's on the baby. But if there's a need to change the baby's diaper, the visitor will be escorted off to change the baby diaper, and they can resume their visits. And that diaper is located in the facility locker, secure locker.
Okay, and are there diapers on site in case there's more than another diaper needed than the only other one that they brought? Because if you're there for, 4.5 hours, you might need another diaper if there's a baby.
I can't confirm or deny if I need another,
Yeah.
is there another diaper? But yes,
Yes.
there are other
There
diapers.
are? Okay.
There.
Yes.
Okay, great. That would be good to know. Okay, so I just want to back up to some points I asked earlier and just make sure I'm understanding. The estimate is that it takes 4.5 hours to complete a family visit. Our position is that this is an underestimate, and our investigator arrived at 12:30 on a day when visits began at 1 p.m. They waited outside until 1:45, so 45 minutes after the beginning of visiting hours. The investigator was then in the locker area waiting to go through the metal detector and be registered until approximately 2:30 p.m. So this means they waited an hour and 30 minutes after the start of visiting hours, and it was not tracked. So the total time for a visit may be more like 6 hours or 7 hours rather than 4.5. So just to circle back on this, I understand you're saying you track from registration, but I think it would behoove you all to track earlier in some way, because, or even adding the question, when did you arrive into the registration? Because that's a huge amount of time to be waiting outside and to be registered. Okay, so circling back to the online schedule funding, it is your position that the $2 million required to procure this software is considered capital funding?
Yes, that's our understanding.
And what is the plan, given that DOC is ineligible for capital funds?
Yeah, it's going to be self-funded. I mean, we look for ways, especially since we're expanding it out. We hope to expand it out pretty robustly, even from what we're obligated to do and what was initially contemplated. So any of the funding, we will come back and make sure if there is a shortage somewhere, we will articulate that. But we would need that, additional funding to expand it out because, as you know, costs increase as we move along in the process.
Right, and are you envisioning this to be the full system for even when we transition into the borough-based jails?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. And how many people are you anticipating to manage the scheduling system full-time?
I think initially it was 12, but I have to confirm.
12 people.
Yeah,
non-uniform
12
staff.
plus the executive director.
And this would be full-time on the
on the
scheduling
entire visits process, which includes
Okay.
attorney visits, like all things visits on Rikers Island.
Okay, I have other questions, just as follow-ups from other hearings, but do you have more questions for this? Okay, great.
When you have your assessment, and we're all waiting for this, would there be a sort of a family, I would say, a peer group that could give ideas about what works or doesn't work to this new staff person and team? Would that be part of the assessment? That would make
We're actually exploring sort of like the questionnaires and sort of feedback to get that from, because that's really integral. That's part of the process, understanding what people are experiencing, and also once we've implemented our new plans, we'll consistently solicit feedback from people, to understand what's happening, to make sure it's in line with what we've put in the policy.
Okay, I mean, obviously, something that's robust in terms of ongoing input would make sense, so I appreciate that, however it gets done. In terms of the attorney visits, that's going to come up, I'm sure, later on in the hearing. The website says that legal visitors can schedule meetings with their clients in advance, but we've heard from legal service providers that it's not an option in practice. Can you share more about why this is not happening, or is it happening?
So that was something that we assessed as part of the assessment and found that that number was not a helpful number for for attorneys to schedule visits. So one of the things that we're looking to explore and pilot next year is an online scheduling form for attorneys to schedule their visits, and we'll have more information in the coming weeks about that.
Okay. Do you keep track of the average wait time for attorneys? The reason I ask is when we've been there, attorneys are outside. Obviously, they can't wait inside, and they're complaining endlessly about waiting.
So that's a good question, and that's one of the things that's come up through this assessment was, do we track attorneys through the visit process the same way we track families through their visit process? And the answer is no, we don't. So we are looking to do next year is that same Visitor Express application that we track family visits, use it to track attorney visits. So there's transparency when attorneys arrive, and we can track them throughout the process as they visit their client.
Okay. We have heard reports from these same providers that the department will say that a person has refused a visit but then later when the attorney or the person, the client, asks about it, they say that that was not correct, and they claim that they weren't even notified about the visit. So I mean, I don't think that's on purpose. I don't know why that would happen. Maybe it's just under staffing. But what is the procedure for notifying a client that an attorney is visiting? What is that procedure, and why would that happen that they wouldn't be told?
Thank you for the question. So we notify the person in custody that he has an attorney visit or she has an attorney visit. An individual has a right to refuse if they choose to, and what we do is we would capture that on our body-worn camera.
All right, but if the person is never told, then it wouldn't be on a camera.
If a
I'm just
person is
saying.
never told, they would not be captured on camera, correct?
But so that's the question. How?
Well, individuals are always told. If there's an attorney that comes to our facility to visit a person in custody, they will be told, and
Okay.
it will be captured on body-worn camera if they refuse.
Okay. I have one question that is not here, but I'm very supportive of the women at Rosie, as everybody knows. For whatever reason, and maybe this is, again, a program issue, they don't get as many visitors. Mostly people go to visit the men. Okay, I understand that. But I'm wondering what we can do to get more visitors to the women. Is that something that's on your agenda, or is that part of the assessment?
This is something ongoingly on our agenda. We are very keenly aware that women historically and nationally get less visits.
It's a national issue, absolutely.
And it is something that, I mean, it's part of why the Visiting and Family Assistance Program exists. How can we reduce barriers so that women can have more visits? We've invested in trying to make sure that we have more event-driven visits as well, specifically with our women, so that these visits can be longer when they do happen, that they can happen at times that might be not during typical school days or school hours, not during typical visit hours, but we are keenly aware that this is something, again, nationally, that women have less visits, and something that we are ongoingly looking to address and support.
Okay, I mean, so is that something that will be, that's not happening now, but will happen with this assessment situation, or?
It's currently happening.
You
now.
have to
I
do
mean,
it by going into the community and figuring out what's going on with that person's family. It's called retail. There's nothing easy about this.
Absolutely, and this is why we partner with community organizations, because it isn't a one-person job. You mentioned that earlier, and these community organizations have community-based support, and why we're constantly looking to see how we can broaden those networks so that women get that additional support.
So one of the data points could be increase in visits to women. Would that be something that you would be tracking as a result of hopefully ongoing community outreach to their families and friends?
We can absolutely look into that.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Christian is here.
So I don't have any more questions on visitation, but I do want to circle back to the issue of the grievances process and the sexual assaults. I've asked about it almost every single hearing that we've had, and I feel that, you know, I don't know who will chair this committee next year. I don't know what DOC and leadership will look like next year, but I find it to be one of the saddest things that we've covered here in this council, and there's never been an apology from the city to these women or to the juveniles. So in April of last year, you all assured us that there was a grievance directive was being revised. In May of last year, you confirmed a review of the directive had been completed and that you had told us you'd be able to give us something in the coming weeks. So it's a year and a half has passed. Just wondering when we will get an update on what has changed, like a clear directive that about the grievance process.
We can give that something to you in the next 2 months. That's the policy process, right? It has to go through a review, right? And if people within the agency, and it goes through review through senior leadership, don't agree with the stakeholder who is requesting the revisions, it gets kicked back, right? Because we're not going to promulgate a new policy that we don't think aligns with the department's vision and improves the process. And so we have had multiple iterations and multiple reviews of this grievance directive. I do know we have a version right now the grievance unit is going through a leadership transition, so we're going to sit down with that new leader in the next couple of weeks, we're not months, but weeks, to let her review it and opine on if that's the direction she wants to go in with the policy. And if so, it will go through the promulgation process, which is another review, and then it's shared with the commissioner for final review and sign off.
Okay. So when a year and a half ago, when you said you'd have something to share with us in a couple weeks, was that true? I mean, was there something written that you were prepared to share to the council? Or was that just, it's like we just keep always get told there's an ongoing assessment. This is a situation where there's sexual assault. People violated, raped, sodomized, whatever. This was really nasty stuff that happened, and I feel like the city has just not stepped up here. Why would it take a year and a half to just get a directive on a simple process of communicating grievances?
I think we're talking about two different things. I think the grievance process and sexual assault.
It's all tied together. There's a breakdown of people filing complaints, filing grievances that has led to the process where there was a breakdown of how things are being reported and the way things are being treated, where people don't feel like they're getting their sexual assault grievances addressed. And we talked about this in relationship to former sexual assault cases, and you all said you were reviewing the process, you were going over it, and we've just not had anything new.
So let me just clarify here. If we become aware of an allegation, it's investigated right away. And we also, I had said to you last year that we were going to do a PREA audit. That's underway right now. I just want to clarify anything with respect to those types of allegations. They're investigated, and there's new leadership over the PREA team, and there's a PREA audit that's underway right now.
Great, but there was also to be a review of the way grievances are communicated across the island.
Okay.
And you said you would have something for us, and we've not had it. Now you're saying in 2 months you might have something for us.
So we will talk internally, and I'll give you an update next week.
Okay, I don't expect that to happen, but
No, I will give you an
appreciate it.
update next
Well,
week.
you said that last time, and we were at this level of tension, so I don't know what the hell to expect.
I will give you an update next week.
Okay.
I would just reiterate, though, about the grievance process. The grievance covers, complaints of every nature throughout the island.
For sure.
I don't want to give the impression to anyone that that's the process for reporting any type of sexual assault. That should be made immediately to any personnel, and in that circumstance, our PREA team looks at it. We refer out to external enforcement agencies and investigative agencies. They will determine whether or not we are then proceeding or they are proceeding. So we don't want to give the impression that grievances. I appreciate your concern and what your frustration with the process, but it should be clear that we have, in any manner we receive a complaint, independent of this grievance process, that we have the system in place, and the commission has articulated, audited what we have. Is what's ongoing to PREA audit.
Okay, I think we're done here. We don't have anyone else. Okay. No, I think for online. Okay, thank you all. So we're now going to hear from the public. I now open the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a formal government proceeding and that decorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant-at-Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant-at-Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you will have 2 minutes to speak on today's hearing topic. If you have a written statement or additional written testimony you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that testimony to the Sergeant-at-Arms. You may also email written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov within 72 hours of this hearing. Audio and video recordings will not be accepted.
I'll call up the first panel. Michael Klinger, Tanya Krupet, Natalie Fiorenzo, Sharon White Harrigan, Leslie Bouchara, and Ashley Santiago Conrad.
You can begin at this time, and they'll start your clock. When you're ready.
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity to speak today. I'm Leslie Bouchara. I'm the Chief Program Officer at the Children's Museum of Manhattan. In the past 7 years, the Children's Museum of Manhattan has built a strong and successful partnership and a shared vision with the New York City Department of Correction to keep families connected during incarceration. This partnership is the first of its kind in the country and has deepened and expanded over the years because of the close collaboration and trusted and established work with the DOC team. This program has become a national model with replication efforts in Kansas City and Massachusetts. Our program model, as you heard earlier, includes in-person visits at CMOM for incarcerated parents, children, and their custodial caregivers, and the installation of CMOM learning hubs at Rikers visitation centers. The in-person visits happen twice a month at CMOM when the museum is closed to the public. Incarcerated parents and their children are reunited for an afternoon of play and bonding and learning. A visit always includes art making, music, story time, a shared meal, and exploration of the exhibits. All the children receive a backpack filled with books and art supplies to bring home, and the families receive a membership to CMOM. Our goal is to make sure that the children and the adults who participate in the program feel welcomed into the CMOM community. The museum hub installations at Rikers are comprised of a suite of engaging components replicated from our current exhibits at the museum and include a New York City green cart and animal sensory train. We've completed 4 installations at Rikers. And finally, I would just like to take a moment to share feedback from a family visit from November. This is from the mother of 10-year-old George, who attended our program in November. And his mother said to us, "I can't believe it, but my son told me that he would give away all his Xbox games just for another day like the one we had with his dad at CMOM. My son put the keychain he made at CMOM on his book bag, and he tells everyone at school, 'My dad gave it to me.' As a mother, I also feel very grateful for the whole experience. We are all learning to value family. Programs like this inspire my son to be someone in the world." And George's father, who is currently incarcerated at Rikers, said after the program, "Being at CMOM today is a reminder that we are parents. This made me reflect on my own goals for myself and to be serious about going home. It's like it is my new mission. The mission is to get home and to be with my son and family. Today was a little preview of freedom."
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today, and to my knowledge, this is the first time a city council hearing has ever focused on this issue, so I'm really grateful to both of you, chairs, your committees, and to the staff who issued the report. My name is Tanya Krupet. I'm the Vice President of Policy and Advocacy at the Osborne Center for Justice Across Generations. My introduction to visiting on Rikers dates back 25 years ago when I was at ACS and started bringing children in foster care to visit their parents on Rikers in June 2000. Since this time and over this time, it has given me an appreciation for the importance of visiting, the challenges of interagency work, the tension between security and what visiting is all about, and the enormous importance of partnerships. So I've been advocating and working with DOC to promote visiting ever since. Visiting affects New Yorkers everywhere, and I really did wish there were more agencies here testifying today. Children and families and communities affected by Rikers are everywhere and served by every city agency. This hearing really means a lot, and I want to give a little history because I hope the new person, who I'm very excited to hear about and excited to hear that this person will have 12 staff members as well, I hope that one thing that they can do is reinstate the DOC visiting working group that was a result of the Jails Action Coalition asking for this. It was a partnership where we met from 2016 to 2020, only interrupted by COVID, and we were the group that achieved many of the things you heard today, the visit greeters, which are now visit facilitators model, the free van service, developing the training, all of these grew out of the DOC visiting working group, so I hope that can be reinstated. I'm glad you asked about the duplicative security. I hope that can be examined, and I wanted to also emphasize that Visitor Express, to my knowledge, does not capture data on visitors under age 16. Which is also a serious liability issue for the department, and I don't think we heard an answer to what happens if there's a lockdown and you're already in the visiting room. What happens to you, as well as if you're separated from your inhaler or any mobility device to walk. Lastly, I just wanted to say visiting is not only a lifeline for those in custody and their families, but it also serves corrections as well. So we look forward to partnering with them and are very grateful for this hearing. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Brewer and Chair Nurse and council members. Thank you so much for holding this hearing this afternoon. My name is Ashley Santiago, and I'm testifying on behalf of Freedom Agenda as the senior community organizer and a member of the Campaign to Close Rikers, as well as a native New Yorker who has made many painful visits to Rikers Island throughout the years. My nephew, who has been diagnosed with developmental disabilities, autism, as well as disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, sat on Rikers Island for 2.5 years in dire need of mental health care and healing. And during that time, my family and I made it as much as a priority to dedicate large chunks of our days to head over to that horror bridge to bring some joy into his day and some into ours, as long periods without getting to see him bothered our souls. A Saturday visitation process consisted of arriving by 7 a.m. and waiting under that hell of a bus shelter to take us over the bridge. The day starts with loads of rules, waiting outdoors while papers are being thrown at you to fill out while you're also trying to take off your shoes and prep for going in through metal detectors, as well as having your fingerprints scanned and traced for drugs. Let me not forget that the visitation protocol was always on the visitors to look up on their own. Traveling to Rikers with my sister and 2 very young nieces always made me the most frustrated. Watching guards yell at my 3-year-old niece to hurry up, to not touch the dogs as K9 searched us. What did I say? Stand still, face the wall. I said face the wall, even forcing my 3-year-old niece to shake out her diaper. Finally getting to the jail where my nephew didn't mean we went straight into a visit. Sometimes we'd be sitting in NIC or GRVC for anywhere from 3 to 5 hours in a cramped, airless waiting room just to see him. Also, there are water fountains in these waiting rooms, but they're all decrepit and do not work. And there are also vending machines, but you're paying like $5 for a pack of Swedish fish. I'm sorry, I'll be fast. I watched my diabetic sister hold out as long as she could in hopes to see my nephew without her insulin or her pump, and mothers with their newborn babies who would have to leave before getting to their visit because their child needed to eat every couple of hours, and no formula nor baby food is allowed. No one's time is taken seriously until that 1-hour visitation is over, and then all of a sudden you hear the guidance of guards. That's it, visitation is over, hurry up if you want to catch the bus. The next one won't be back for another 30 minutes. That's right, a bus to escort you literally across the street. On some days, we'd go through this idea without seeing my nephew at all. Many times, the Department of Corrections would tell us that my nephew didn't want to come down, even though he knew we were coming and was waiting for our visit. We'd leave Crush, and then he would call us later in the evening, letting us know that he waited, but the Department of Corrections never came to get him. And many days, we travel all the way to the island just to be told at the entrance, if anyone is here for OBCC, for example, please turn around. The building is on lockdown, and they won't be getting any visitation. Information that would have been helpful to have before making the long trip there. Although there is no replacement for seeing your loved one in person, You might think that video calls could help family members stay connected when they just don't have the time or energy to deal with the ordeal of visiting Rikers in person. But no, actually setting up televisits involved making multiple requests, then waiting for confirmation. Confirmation then could be denied or approved down to the very minute of the scheduled time. Even then, confirmation didn't hold any value. There'd be times that we'd wait for the guards to bring my nephew down to the computer, which often ate a huge chunk of our 1 hour visit slot, or they actually never brought him down at all.
Can I ask that you wrap up, just because we have a very long list? Thank you.
I'm just gonna close out and say for hundreds of families trekking to Rikers every weekend, a visit should be brought joy that leaves you feeling, should be brought with joy. Instead, you're left feeling defeated and wish that there was a way to bring your loved one back home with you. It's almost like the entire process is designed to deter you from coming to see your loved one. Department of Corrections disrespect will never stop me and the multiple loved ones I used to see coming and going from Rikers. However, if we truly cared about the dignity and human rights for incarcerated people and their loved ones, Rikers wouldn't exist. But while we work to close it, it's imperative that DOC take real and immediate steps to not just support, but encourage visiting and comply with the laws this council has passed. Thank you.
Is that on? It is. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Klinger. I'm a jail services attorney with Brooklyn Defenders. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony at today's hearing on visiting people held in Department of Correction custody on Rikers Island. Today marks the final hearings of the Committees on Criminal Justice and Oversight Investigations for this year and for this legislative session. So we want to begin by thanking Chair Brewer and Chair Nurse, and their respective staffs and committee staff, not only for today's hearing, but for the leadership and guidance throughout the legislative session. Our written testimony will include stories from the people we represent and their families that tend to support today's OID report to the extent they highlight the inconsistent, arbitrary, and often incorrect application of rules to families and loved ones. These stories are broadly reflective of the experiences of the people we represent and their families. They're not aberrations, they are the norm. In our remaining time now, we want to ask the department and the council to join us in moving beyond recriminations about these failures and instead focusing on what we believe to be fixable. To the extent the problems the visits discussed today reflect a need for better training, supervision, and accountability, the department can make those adjustments, and future reporting bills to the council can provide structure and transparency to those efforts. But to the extent these failures reflect a cultural problem at the department, we urge the department, the council, and all stakeholders to reinstantiate and formalize the collaborative working group that met from 2016 to 2020 and that we heard Ms. Krupa refer to. That group not only made meaningful changes to the visit process through dialogue between uniformed and non-uniformed department staff and advocates, but also produced a full-day training for the department's visit staff through which officers contributed their own valuable observations, ideas, hopes, and criticisms for how best to maintain a welcoming, empathetic visit process for families and loved ones. This collaboration, critically including the voices of department staff, represents a path forward, not only as we seek to improve visits on Rikers Island, but as we interrogate every aspect of how New York City works to restore families and communities impacted by the criminal legal system. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Natalie Fiorenzo. I'm a senior corrections specialist at New York County Defender Services, one of Manhattan's public defense agencies that represents tens of thousands of New Yorkers every year. I want to say thank you to the council for conducting this crucial investigation and compiling a report on family visitation to Rikers, an issue that demoralizes and further isolates our community members every day. We're currently in peak holiday season, one of the most depressing times of the year to be on Rikers Island. For so many of those individuals who are incarcerated who would love their family members to come visit them at such a family-oriented time of year, they instead choose not to. The process of visiting a loved one on Rikers Island is not only arduous, but cruel. Families have to wait for hours out in the sun, the rain, the cold. They're often treated as less than human by the many officers they have to encounter throughout their day, some of whom seem to make up rules as they go, preventing certain visitors or visitees from their precious time together. They are sometimes ridiculed, their disabilities and basic needs exploited rather than accommodated. For those who do ask their families to visit, their families cannot always endure this process, such as the council's report outlines. For that reason, the Department of Correction offers virtual visits so that families can connect with their incarcerated loved ones without going through the trauma of coming in person. Unfortunately, these virtual visits are offered only once a week for a very short window of time, on Fridays from 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. This is during both work and school hours, and is therefore not feasible for many families who need that option, namely working mothers and their young children. Although this investigation was centered on family visitation, it is important to know that, like many other systems on Rikers Island, these obstacles are not just confined to the family visit process. Our clients' right to their attorneys is thwarted at every turn. Access to counsel is one of our most basic constitutional rights, but the Department of Correction treats it as more of a suggestion. The wait from the time we arrive at our client's facility to actually being in the meeting booth with them averages between 2 and 3 hours at a time. That does not include the time it takes to get to the facility from the main building or the time it takes to meaningfully meet with your client. Once you are physically in the room with your client, there are still barriers to an effective meeting. In some facilities, there are no chairs to sit in. In others, you have to choose between either only having one visitor, which is a language accessibility problem, or having a non-confidential legal visit in a separate area. In another facility, you have to risk getting locked in an intake cell for 45 minutes, an hour, or more, with no person in sight to let you out. I am almost done, I'm so sorry. These are the roadblocks that occur when you actually end up seeing your client. There's another trend in the department, the trend of false refusals. On average, I would say about 60% of the time I'm told a client refused my visit, they did not. I discover this by either the client themselves telling me the next time I see them, or the fact that if you call the right person at the department in the moment of this alleged refusal, your client magically appears within 10 or 15 minutes. On a whole, the system is broken and unconstitutional. Hindering access to clients for us and family for others is the norm here. I hope this investigation and the council's close attention will change that. Thank you.
Great morning. My name is the Reverend Dr. Sharon White Harrigan, Executive Director of the Women's Community Justice Association, also known as WCJA, home to the Beyond Rosie's campaign, Justice for Women Task Force, and Sankofa Place House of Healing. And I stand here, I'm here today to not just be an advocate, but as a voice for the countless families whose lives are fractured by the inhumane reality of visitation at Rikers Island, as well as a formerly incarcerated woman. This isn't just about the policy, it's about dignity, human connection, and the fundamental right to maintain familial bonds. And while we acknowledge the report, thank you, we commend the passage of Intro 420, 1026, and 1023. These laws on paper offer a blueprint for progress, child-friendly visits, transparent record keeping, and an online schedule system. But to be clear, legislation is only as powerful as its implementation. And far too long, the Department of Corrections have treated family visitation as a burden, not as a human right or a critical healing tool. The stories we hear are not anecdotes. They're not anecdotes, they are systemic failures. Imagine a parent holding their infant, waiting 6 to 7 excruciating hours at Rikers, only to be turned away at the arbitrary whim of a cutoff point. Children whose visits are explicitly legislated to be supportive are denied essential items like bottles, whose families, while families are subjected to invasive security screenings, with documented 85% false positive rates that create undue trauma and suspicion. This isn't just a Rikers problem. These same flawed technologies plague our upstate prison system, extending the reach of this injustice and disproportionately affecting women. Even the most basic needs like access to the bathroom or the right to keep a walker or asthma inhaler are routinely compromised. These are not isolated incidents. They are the direct consequences of a broken system that lacks compassion, accountability, and proper oversight. The absence of the once effective DOC visit work group, which actively engaged community representatives, is a glaring omission. So the current approach is not just inefficient, it is actively tearing families apart, undermining public safety, and perpetuating a cycle of trauma. So, council members, your legislative efforts have laid the groundwork. Now we implore you, demand more than mere compliance. Demand a complete cultural transformation within DOC. Hold them accountable for every minute of delay, every indignity suffered, every family bond needlessly severed, and also ensure that Intro 420, 1026, and 1023, and I know the latter is in 2027, are implemented with urgency and integrity that they deserve. Rikers can never be a place of dignity for people, but we can have human connection and we can prioritize that, where dignity is restored for the people, where the laws genuinely serve the people that they are intended to protect. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now call up the next panel. Thank you all for your testimony. Any question? Oh, sorry, there's a question.
I have one question for Osborne. I am concerned, I want to know, is it true what was said earlier, that there is somebody there working with the families, and if there's somebody with the, not just the persons who are detained, but the families who are coming in? Is that happening?
I believe what was described that will be happening in the Central Visit House is a new contract with Our Children. I totally agree with you about the number of people who would be needed to do that. I think it's one staff member that Our Children is staffing. So
Okay,
it's forthcoming.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next up, we have Julia Tedesco, Tahani Dunn, Liz Bender, Alexander Fisher, and Barbara Manu. And you can begin when you're ready.
You. Before I start my testimony, I would like to express my condolences to the family of Aramamas Fuse, who was the 14th person in custody to die this year while being detained at Rikers Island. Good afternoon. My name is Tahani Dunn. I am the director of the Prisoners' Rights Practice and the Criminal Defense Attorney at the Bronx Defenders. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this afternoon. Visitation issues at Rikers Island are not a new phenomenon. There has been litigation on this topic, such as in Benjamin v. Frazier in 2001, where the Second Circuit held that the Rikers Island delays regularly exceeding 45 minutes violated the rights of pretrial detainees because the delays were an unreasonable burden on their rights to prepare a defense and to access the courts. These rights are at the crux of every criminal case, but are wholly illusory if the attorney-client relationship cannot be meaningfully fostered. When a person is in pretrial detention, the only way to develop that relationship and move cases forward is through legal visits. Over the years, countless records have been made in public hearings just like this one, where criminal defense attorneys and advocates have implored elected officials and oversight agencies to help fix the ongoing obstacles that plague our ability to see our clients detained at Rikers Island. The truth is, not much has changed, and in fact, things are getting worse. In my capacity as a criminal defense attorney, I have experienced endless barriers to accessing my clients, and in my capacity as the director of the Prisoners' Rights Practice, I am constantly communicating with those in custody and their advocates. The most prominent issues are outrageously long wait times for legal visits. This is across the board at every facility. However, some facilities are worse than others. It is usually sheer luck if you are able to see your client in a timely manner, and that luck is generally due to a good escort being available. But at facilities like RNDC, it is not unusual for an advocate to wait upward of 2 hours to see their client. Similarly, wait times at EMTC, GRVC, and RESH can be as long as 3 to 4 hours. As stunning as this sounds, it is truly a common occurrence, and there are seldom valid reasons for the excessive delays. A catch-all reason is lack of escorts, nor is there any sense of importance or urgency exhibited by officers in charge of the process. At GRVC last month, my co-counsel and I went to visit on a Sunday. We were in the middle of trial and needed to prepare our client for testimony. To testify. After waiting more than 3 hours and speaking to 3 separate captains about the delay, he was brought down and left in the legal visiting area for 20 minutes before we were notified. When we asked him what was the holdup, he said there was none. An officer had just come to his housing area to inform him of the visit. He had no idea we had been waiting as long as we had. A captain later interrupted our visit to tell me that if I wanted to see my client in a timely fashion, we should come during the week during regular business hours. When I reminded the captain that we were, in fact, there during regular business hours, I was met with hostility and rudeness. Equally as frustrating are the alleged refusals for our clients, which on many occasions proved to be untrue. Most recently, I had a client at RNDC whose case was in a hearing and trial posture, thus visiting him was essential. His legal team and I were went on 3 consecutive occasions and were told he refused that visit. When we pushed back, stating he was anticipating our visit, we were met with flippant and dismissive attitudes. When we spoke to him later, he assured us that he had not refused, rather no one had come to his housing area to notify him of the visit. This happened with many virtual visits too, essentially cutting us off from access to our client for over a month. These experiences are not unique to me, nor are they unique to one facility. The advocates at my office have these experiences at every facility on a daily basis. I receive dozens and dozens of complaints from our staff and our clients every month. It is appalling. The New York City Department of Correction cannot continue to function at such a low standard. Things have to change. No other jurisdiction allows for their jails to function this way. It is completely unacceptable, and it is time to insist that DOC stop making excuses for their dysfunction. It is time to hold them accountable. I just want to take 2 seconds to respond to the RESH litigation. I was there 2 weeks ago. We were taken to the back of the facility, but I was taken in the back of a van that did not have seats available. So we were sitting literally on wood slabs and sat outside of the facility in that car and on wood slabs for about 20 to 30 minutes. So there are lots of outgoing issues, and I will submit written testimony to council as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just asking for folks to try to stick to the 2 minutes if possible, just because there are a bunch of other stuff today, so thank you so much.
My name is Alexandra Fisher, and I'm an attorney at the Legal Aid Society, where I work on bail packages and fight for the freedom of incarcerated women. I represent women, often in the darkest time of their lives, women separated from family, children, and loved ones and confined to cells. And I ask them detailed questions about some of the most painful, shameful, and scary parts of their lives. I gather this information so I can tell their stories to the court in the hope of gaining their freedom. These conversations between an attorney and client should not take place over the phone or video. Yet visiting a client who has a constitutional right to counsel while at Rikers is an insurmountable task. As you know, when we arrive, we catch a bus to the jail. When we arrive at RMSC, we hope to be the first people there, so we might see our client within an hour. If not, we are looking at a 3 to 4 hour wait to see a single client due to the only one visiting booth. This makes it impossible to see more than one client in a day. There are often multiple people waiting in the visiting room. To make the most effective bail application, legal aid staff must be able to sit across from the woman we represent, introduce ourselves in person in order to gain their trust and create a safe space for clients to tell us about their childhood, sexual trauma, or experience being trafficked. We must be able to see the women we represent. An experience of abuse may manifest physically, causing us to sit in silence, sometimes for minutes, as a client processes the question that we've just asked. What was it like growing up in that house? As memories of abuse and neglect flash before her eyes, when you're there in person, you know it's not a glitch in the internet. It's an important part of your relationship. In-person visits allow us to comfort our clients, to pass a tissue as they speak about the intimate partner violence they've experienced throughout their lives. We face similar delays with video conferences. Clients are brought to videos, sometimes 45 minutes late to an hour-long video slot. There have been instances where the wrong person is brought down. These delays at RMSC have gotten significantly worse since women have been housed in the same housing area as men. To wrap up, Delays in access to our clients means delays in bail applications, client preparation, and advocacy. Long hours waits to see clients in person is not acceptable and compromises our ability to represent people. Overall, these issues illustrate again and again the urgent necessity to close Rikers Island, along with the twin necessity to ensure that the conditions inside the jail are improved today. These essential in-person visits must be supported and expanded. Thank you.
I just have one question, because when we were there, we went there to see Rosie, to see the women, and with the men moving in the past, did you have more rooms to meet, or is this common to just have one at Rosie? In other words, in the past, when you didn't have the men there, it was perhaps easier to meet with your clients. I don't know, I'm asking.
In the past, there were 3 booths. That has been, there was construction and now there's only 1 booth. The issue with men being housed is that we have been told by corrections officers that they can't move women and men at the same time.
We got told the same thing, so it really delays.
Very much so.
Good morning. My name is Julia Tedesco, and I'm a trial attorney at New York County Defender Services, or NYCDS, one of Manhattan's public defender offices. I try to visit clients at Rikers as often as possible, but the process is plagued by obstacles: hours-long waits, sudden lockdowns, staff shortages, and increasingly fabricated refusals by DOC staff. On November 12, 2025, Rikers staff told one of our corrections specialists that my client refused a video visit. Officers gave us the refusal slip, which is a document that must be signed by the client. I immediately found this suspicious given how eager this client was to communicate with us. I physically went to Rikers on November 20th to see this client in person. I was again told that my client had refused the visit, this time supposedly on video or body cam. Within minutes, officers told 2 other attorneys waiting that their clients also refused. I obviously found this very suspicious. So I immediately contacted our corrections specialist team, who reached out to the Criminal Justice Bureau, or CJB. CJB responded that a captain would, quote, "go get the paperwork signed," which was a revealing admission that no refusal slip actually existed. Magically, 30 minutes later, I was informed that my client was no longer refusing. When we spoke, he told me unequivocally that he never refused a visit that morning, so there was no refusal on video. He also said that he never signed a refusal slip on November 12th. I compared that signature to the documents he signed in front of me on November 20th. They did not match. A corrections officer forged my client's signature. Pretrial detention is dehumanizing. We know this. And the persistent denial of counsel access through fabricated refusals is a direct violation of the Sixth Amendment right to counsel. This is not a clerical error or misunderstanding. It is a deliberate obstruction. When Rikers staff fabricate refusals, they do not merely inconvenience attorneys. They silence clients and sever one of the few lifelines available to people detained pretrial. They prohibit clients' opportunity to meaningfully participate in their own defense. This undermines attorney-client relationships, compromises case outcomes, and violates constitutional rights. The Sixth Amendment cannot survive when access to counsel depends on the dishonesty or negligence of corrections officers. My client's experience makes clear that at Rikers Island, constitutional rights are not just neglected, they are actively obstructed. This deliberate interference must end. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us here. My name's Liz Bender. I'm the Senior Policy Counsel at the Neighborhood Defender Service of Harlem. I really appreciate you holding this hearing and all the questions you posed to the commissioners earlier. I want to talk about our office's experience visiting our clients. As you've heard, there are 3 key ways where DOC impedes our clients' access to counsel. That's long wait times, lack of confidentiality, and mistreatment of visitors by DOC staff. DOC's own website says that our legal visits are supposed to start within 45 minutes of registration. That is a joke. I can count on half of one hand the times that has happened for me, and it's only at RNDC, which we can walk to. The bus ride to the facilities alone can take more than 45 minutes. They tell us on the website that we can schedule our visits in advance to try to eliminate and cut down on this wait time. We have tried for months to do that. I think the quote from the commissioner or one of the representatives today was that it's not a helpful phone number. I would agree with that. We have been completely unsuccessful scheduling visits, told that that doesn't happen. This is their own policy on their own website that they're not following. When it comes to confidentiality, it's almost non-existent. Almost all of the council visit areas force us to shout at our clients through plexiglass. There are COs and sometimes other detained people very nearby who can see and probably hear everything that we are talking about in these immensely vulnerable conversations. And finally, we know that as advocates, what we experience when we visit Rikers pales in comparison to that which our clients experience while they're detained there. So I don't share the following because I think what happens to us is more important than what happens to them. But I share it because I think it's emblematic of the culture of Rikers Island, which is a culture of disdain and disrespect for the people detained there and those who are visiting them, represent them, and advocate for them. Recently, a colleague of mine went to Rikers to meet with her client. She was recognized by the CO at the facility. And as he saw her approaching, he said, "Oh, it's you. I have a chloroform-soaked rag behind my desk just for you." She then had to continue with her job, visiting a client at Rikers Island. There is no circumstance under which a comment like that is acceptable. But everyone here in this room who has spent time visiting Rikers Island will know that it is no outlier. It is part of and emblematic of a system that's designed to make it as unpleasant, difficult, and time-consuming as possible to visit our clients and provide them with the legal representation that they deserve. Thank you.
Question, have you ever, I know I just had one question for you. Have you, or the person you're talking about, ever filed a complaint about that incident?
She didn't. It was a recent incident. We'll talk about it more internally, but I will say that everyone's reaction was complain to whom? What's going to happen?
Fair.
This happens all the time.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Barbara Meno. My son, 19-year-old, has a mental disease, and none of his mental status has ever been addressed by the court or Rikers Island. My son was detained April the 9th. The bed that he sleeps on, most of the issues he has, I believe, it's already been addressed, so I don't want to go details. He sleeps on the floor because the mattress is not of no use, so he has to sleep on a cold floor. There is no heat in his cell. There is no heat, and for the past 2 weeks, there have been 2 lockdowns for 2 days without no shower. Also, I'm very grateful. I heard when I visited him, I believe last week, he told me that he was not allowed to see, I didn't even know some of you were in the jail visiting the inmate or doing investigation. But he told me the day you came, he was never allowed in his cell. All the inmates met with you. He's in RNDC house. He never saw you, all because the COs were instructed not to let him come and meet with you. So they hide him basically, not for you guys to see him. Also, lastly, I'm trying to set a bill. I was told to pay $10,000 cash at the jail or 10% of the $10,000. I've tried twice, but I've been given wrong information that I have to send 10% to a bailsman, which is wrong. Because I've done this twice for some friends of mine, that I billed them with the 10%. But twice they have refused to take the 10% in the jail, all because, and I find it very suspicious about this, for his arrest, for my son's arrest, and also his detention, all because of some illegal issues that went on at the age of 13 years old, that he never was allowed to go to school, all because of, I'm sorry to say this, a lot of people, I'm sorry, because of the corruption in the agencies. And I believe he's also pressured and manipulated to give himself to those third parties that have been stalking and harassing him and doing the same thing over and getting a lot of mistreatments from these CEOs. Thank you. I have the letter, my statement is already here. I don't want to go details because of time. Thank you.
Okay, and just really quickly, can you state your name?
My name is Barbara Menu.
Okay, can you leave your contact information with the sergeant in the back? Ms.
Sure.
Barbara? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for testifying. The next panel is Cecilia Tubert, Chaplain Dr. Victoria Phillips, and then we'll move into online after that. You can begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon. Thank you, committee members. My name is Cecilia Tuber. I'm the community organizer at Bronx Connect, Urban Youth Alliance. We work with at-risk, people identified as high risk, court-involved youth, along with formerly incarcerated people. So to preface, I just want to say that I want increased public safety. I want a decrease in crime, and I know that keeping individuals from their families and legal counsel is unjust, and it will not lead to a reduction in recidivism. So that person that's in custody, that's a mother, that's a father, that's a brother, sister, daughter, son. The moment they get to visit are so precious from their family and from their loved ones, yet oftentimes become a traumatic experience with lengthy, invasive visitation procedures. Intergenerational incarceration is very real, and we need to look at this role that our current process is having and plays with those young, impressionable children that are visiting their parents. We are seeing the troubling experience lawyers as well deal with when simply trying to speak with their client. Issues such as excessive wait times, limitations on telephonic and digital visitation, and falsely reporting a refusal for visitation. That's not only extremely problematic, but it's illegal. So this is simply unconstitutional and a violation of the Sixth Amendment right, which is refusing the right to counsel. As I briefly mentioned, I work at Urban Youth Alliance Bronx Connect, and most of our ATI youth, our alternative to incarceration youth, have been subjected to the deplorable conditions at Rikers. I have heard countless stories of the abuse people have endured at Rikers, and if we can mend a flawed system with very real and effective solutions, why are we not implementing them now? I think we heard from some people on the panel before, kind of explaining what we can do, but we can also, we need to improve visitor processing and security, and reducing wait times. And additionally, we also need accountability and transparency. Those are crucial, and we can do so by requiring DOC to report on visiting operations, status of improvements, and date on at every BOC meeting. I know we only have a few minutes, so I'll spare you the rest, and I just want to thank you for listening to me today. Thank you.
Peace and blessings. You can hear me? All right. Peace and blessings, everyone, chairs and city council members. Thank you. I'm Chaplain Dr. Victoria Phillips. Everyone calls me Dr. V. I am the founder and CEO of Visionary V Ministries and the co-founder of the Jails Action Coalition and a member, a leader in the Justice Foreman Task Force. I want to touch on a couple of things. I'll submit written testimony, but I think it's very important to highlight the deceptive nature of the Department of Corrections. Visiting is a key line, a lifeline, and one thing I do know for a fact, well, I'm super happy that years ago the Jails Action Coalition was able to work with the city and the Department of Corrections and establish a visiting group. In that group, we were able to get buses from Brooklyn and Harlem to actually assist those in the community going to see their loved ones. Over time and through administration changes, that group fell apart. Bring it back, please. I also just want to say that it's important. There's so many things I could talk about, but I want to highlight Judge Hamilton. She used to be part of the Board of Corrections Oversight, and I'll never forget many years ago, about I think in 2020, she finally admitted and apologized on the record to us advocates, because she said at many times it was so hard for her to believe the things that we would state on the record that the officers were doing. Some of them were sexual assaults and committing them during visit. And then later on, the reason she apologized because many of them through investigation were actually recently charged before her apology. So I just want to highlight that, because even now, even last year, I had to go on the record and testify about DOC not even responding to their own female officer who was assaulted on the island by another officer while on tour. And the union dropped the ball on her, and advocates in the union suggested that she reach out to me. And I followed up on it. And I'm bringing that to City Council. I already testified it on the record, but I want to remind you all today that DOC lies. DOC does not even, give me 30 more seconds, DOC does not even respond properly to their own uniformed staff when in trouble. And they have not submitted a PREA report in God knows how long. So when we talk about accountability, when they tell you that if someone files a report that'll be followed up on, do not believe them. Make sure accountability is a real thing, because if they didn't follow up with their own officer assaulted until after I spoke to the FDC 20 days after being assaulted, and then I spoke to the FDC, and the very next day an investigator reached out to her, there is a real problem in this system that's supposed to be teaching other people how to correct their wrong actions. I'll submit the rest in writing. Peace and blessings.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today. My name is Trini Garamella, and I'm the Policy Associate at the Osborne Center for Justice Across Generations. Osborne currently provides parenting and visiting support programming at RMSC and OBCC. We have programs for older people incarcerated on Rikers at GRVC and NIC, and we facilitate televisiting and provide court advocacy services that give us additional insight into the visiting experiences of those on Rikers and their families. I will now share some of what we've heard directly from families who are currently visiting loved ones incarcerated at Rikers. It can take all day to have a 1-hour visit due to processing and wait times, and sometimes visits do not take place after families have made the arduous trip to Rikers due to lockdowns or other reasons. This visiting process is very hard on children because it's time-consuming, and there are not a lot of food or beverage options available. The visit graders at RMSC, OBCC, and CVH are wonderful, and an expansion of the service to all facilities would be greatly appreciated. The dress code is outdated and the cover-up garments are rarely provided. The DOC website does not provide enough or accurate information on visiting procedures. Nothing replaces in-person visiting, but given the challenges of visiting at Rikers, televisiting has become very important to families. However, the decision made during COVID to place televisiting booths inside the busy visit rooms means that televisiting is only offered on Fridays from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. when people work and children are in school. We urge the department to create a time on Saturday or Sunday, or both, outside of the in-person visiting times to offer weekend televisiting hours. Finally, I want to conclude with a heartfelt message to you from our Youth Action Council, a group of young people aged 15 to 19. We are the Youth Action Council, and all of us have had an incarcerated parent. Visits help us remember our parents and maintain a connection with them while they are incarcerated. Visits help our parents feel connected to us, and this helps their emotional well-being. Why does it have to be so hard to visit? We ask for a shorter security screening process because it is not right that screening takes longer than the visit itself. We ask for a child-friendly screening process where we don't feel violated by intrusive pat searches or treated as if we did something wrong. Rikers creates pain and suffering for no reason and must be closed. Until this happens, please make it easier to visit and treat us with the respect when we do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If there is anyone else who is in person who wants to testify, please see the Sergeant at Arms. Now we're going to move to Zoom.
We're going to start with Nori Perez.
Good afternoon, committee and council members. My name is Nori Perez, and I'm here today because this issue is personal. My brother Franklin Dominguez died while in state custody in February 2025. He was one of 7 individuals who lost their lives during the illegal work stoppage by correctional officers protesting the Halt Solitary Confinement Act. While serving a 6-year sentence, he was routinely assaulted, placed in solitary confinement, denied food, and toward the end of his life, stripped of his communication privileges. Losing him has been devastating, but what has stayed with me just as deeply is realizing how preventable his death was. He was a human being, someone's child, someone's sibling who needed care, not neglect. What happened to my family is not an isolated tragedy. It is the direct result of a culture inside jails and prisons where safety is defined only as control and never as well-being. And when you build a system on fear, punishment, and silence, people get hurt. People die. Today, I am asking this council, this committee to help shift that culture from one focused on compliance to one centered on humanity, accountability, and care. Because safety inside jails is not separate from public safety, they are the same. There are 3 practical steps this committee and council can take right now. First, strengthen independent oversight. We need real transparency, not internal investigations checking their own work, but outside reviewers with full access to facilities, medical logs, use of force reports, and grievance systems. Second, expand medical mental health protections. Too many deaths in custody begin with ignored symptoms, untreated withdrawal, or responses. This city can mandate timely medical checks, require clear documentation, and enforce consequences when staff fail to act. Third, limit the use of prolonged isolation. We know isolation worsens mental health, increases self-harm, and escalates violence. Restricting it to true emergencies with monitoring and time limits makes jails safer for both incarcerated people and staff. None of these changes.
Your time has expired.
You can finish up.
They are basic standards of care. Thank you. They are what any of us would want for our own family members, and they are fully within your power. My brother's life can be returned, but the lessons from his death can prevent the next one. I'm asking you as elected leaders, as a member of this community, as human beings, to create a jail system that treats people as people, because dignity is not a reward, it is a right. And how we treat those in our custody is a reflection of who we are. Thank you for your time and for your commitment to making our jails safer.
Thank you very much, and thank you for testifying today on such a meaningful and personal topic. Next is Christopher Leon Johnson.
Yeah, hello, my name is Christopher Leon Johnson. I want to make this clear that Sandy Nurse did a great job as the chair of the Criminal Justice Committee in the past 4 years. But I'm going to stay on topic. So I'll make this clear that I think that the New York City Council need to come together with the New York City Transportation and call out the MTA and ask MTA president for the transit, Demetrius Churchlow and General Lieber, of like why the buses only run a certain amount of hours a day. And I believe that the buses that go to Rikers to Q100 should be running at more times during the times when you could actually visit the prisoners. I'll make this clear that the city has to really step up and to protect women when they go inside the jails to be visited, and to make it aware that only women are able to search women. The city needs to start doing more rigorous background checks when it comes to hiring corrections officers, to where if you got accused of harassment accusation, you should not be hired as a corrections officer. So like I said, I know I have 2 minutes to speak, but like I said, I need to step up when it comes to increasing the bus times when it goes to visiting Rikers, because it's cold out right now. Who want to wait in the cold, like 20 degrees outside, waiting for a bus, and you came in driving to the island? You know what I mean? Unless you're like a lawyer or something like that. But they need to make it where that you're able to drive into the island. If you're a regular citizen, you're able to drive into the island. So, I mean, but thank you so much. You did a great job this session, Sandy. I hope that Julie reappoints you as chair of the Criminal Justice Committee again. So thank you and enjoy your day.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Danielle Gerard. Not present. Alex Stein. Not present.
If there's anyone online who would like to testify and has not, please raise your hand. We'll wait for 5 seconds. Seeing no names and no hands, we will now conclude this hearing. Thank you, Chair Brewer, for co-chairing this, and thank you to just to put it on record, to my committee staff, Natalie and Jeremy and Casey and Jack have been the best. And Nicole, thank you for your work, and Kevin. I'm sorry if I forgot anybody else. It's been a long day, but thank you for all of the work that you do and for holding us up to do these oversight hearings. It's been a pleasure. Thank you all.